Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to call this special quorum court meeting to order. The purpose of this meeting is to continue working on items prepared for the 2016 budget. The prayer and the pledge will be handled by J.P. Sharon Lloyd. J.P. Lloyd.
Thank you. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight, God, and we just ask you for your presence, and we ask you for your wisdom and your guidance over this court as we make the decisions of the county, Lord. We look to you, God, for this knowledge that we need to expel these finances that we need to go through. And God, we just praise you, and we thank you for all you've done. And we say these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Carly, would you call the roll, please?
Daniel Balls. Here. Harvey Bowman. Here. Rick Cochran. Here. Robert Dennis. Here. Lisa Ecke. Here. Ann Harbison. Here. Sharon Lloyd. Here. Tom Lindstrom. Here. Eva Madison. Here. Sue Madison. Here. Joe Maxwell. Here. Gary McHenry. Here. Joe Patterson. Here. Butch Pond. Here. Bill Ussery. Here.
Quorum present. Before we start the meeting, I've had a request that to please remember to turn your mics off when you're not speaking. I know sometimes I leave mine on, but I understand it's causing some problems with a few of our people. So be sure you turn it on when you're talking and turn it off when you're completed. That I would like to ask of you. Thank you very much. Next thing we have, do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Adoption for the agenda is complete. Next, we're going to go into reviewing the budgets. Yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask a question sort of about the agenda. I don't have a problem with tonight's agenda, but we didn't finish all those budget controls. We left them for later. And when were we going to do that?
Thursday.
Which ones? What has been left out that Karen may have it all?
There were some that we said we'd come back
Thursday.
to.
Pardon?
I made the motion.
It's on Thursday's agenda.
I'm sorry.
It is.
I made the motion.
Okay.
Okay.
She knows.
Thank you.
Yes, Ann.
Before we get started tonight on the budgets, I would like for the court to consider all vehicles that all departments that we spend one night and hash out a policy or something, whether it's a part of their salary or if it's whatever. The other night we spent, an hour or 2 hours, and there really was no decision made from that discussion. So it's up to this court whether you want to do that, but I think it would be very productive, more productive to do that than to hash it out with each budget. We can go back and have those people come back in, and they can justify why they need to drive or not drive a vehicle, and we can spend one whole evening dealing with that issue. Since we really do not have a policy for that, maybe we need to start and look at a policy that covers all departments, just not a few departments. Thank you.
Are you making that in the form of a motion, or what do we want
I'll
discussion?
just make it in the form of a motion because, I just think it's taking up a lot of time, but yet we're not making any decisions regarding those vehicles. And I think we would be more productive if we spent a whole evening or 2 meetings hashing out policies and determining, who drives and who doesn't drive a vehicle. Thank you.
J.P. Ecke.
Would that be covered with the Personnel Committee first, or part of the Budget Committee?
No.
As far as policies for vehicles.
I can add this to the agenda and it can be brought as a full item to the court.
As a full item to the court?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, J.P. Madison.
I believe that the Public Works Committee started on this last year, and I was the chair at the time, and I was not reappointed to the committee, so I was unable to continue in the work that we were attempting to do to address the concerns that J.P. Harbison raises. But I think to try to do it in the midst of the budget process really won't work because, for instance, one of the departments with a significant number of cars is set for tonight. Does that mean that we don't approve their budget and wait until we get to the meeting on the cars? I just think we're doing it piecemeal, and I don't know that that will work. I think it's too late in the process to try to do that. I mean, I think it's a good discussion that we need to have. I think it belongs in the Public Works Committee. Maybe to some extent, J.P. Ecky's right that part of it belongs in the Personnel Committee, but I don't think it belongs on a Budget Committee agenda, given how far along we are in the process. And I don't believe there's been a second. So thank you, Madam Judge.
Okay. Mr. Zaga.
Justice Madison's right. There's not anything to discuss yet, as there's not been a second to Justice Harbison's motion.
Yes, J.P. Pond.
I would agree with J.P. Eva Madison, and I might add that if we don't get into this vehicle issue anymore while we're doing this budget, we might get through the budget process a lot more quickly. Thank you.
That's why I made this motion, so we can get through the budget process, because we spent at least 2 hours the other night discussing this, and no action really was taken on that other than the budgets were approved. Now, approving vehicles and things, to me, is a different issue than the policies of who drives what vehicles. Thank you.
I need to make something totally clear. We're reviewing these budgets, but we're not approving anything yet until the final budget appears in November. Am I not correct? You're correct. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on here in the budgets. Nothing has been approved yet and will not be until the final budget. Yes.
There's been a lot of discussion about we have to have the budget passed in November, but for the last 2 years, I believe the budget's always been approved in December. That's our goal. And so I know I feel like right now we're feeling very compressed on the time available to us. We have until December to approve the budget. It's the millage that must be passed at the November budget meeting. So for those of you who may not understand that, because of the way it's been done for the past 2 years, we do have the benefit of a little bit more time. So thank you, Madam Judge.
But I think probably the point that's been made is we must pass the millage in November, not the budget, but the millage. So I just want to make sure that's totally clear. Thank you.
Okay, so now.
Judge, there's not been a second.
Okay, you died for lack of second?
That's
Okay.
my opinion.
So do we want to try to make an amendment or maybe to pass a motion here to take it to another committee? What's the wish of the court? You want to take the vehicles to another committee before we, and go ahead, proceed with the budget? And J.P. Ecke?
I'd like to make a motion just to proceed with the agenda that we have before us. No, let's just proceed. Can we do that?
You've got your agenda already adopted, Justice Ecke. I think the question was, do you want to take vehicle policy to a different committee, whether it be Public Works or Personnel, or which I think appropriate, either one, actually. And by the way, just so you all know, you don't have to decide this right now. You can think about it.
Can we table that motion? I'd like to make a motion to table that decision for later. No, just withdraw the motion.
Okay.
Wasn't my motion to make.
Okay.
Anyway, and all God's people
Then
said
are we
amen.
ready to proceed with the budgets in front of us? The first one we've got on record is the library. Glenda? Thank you very much.
My name's Glenda Audrain, and I'm the director of the Washington County Library System. The only capital article, I can't talk. The only capital that I'm asking for is $27,250 for new proprietary software server that runs the automated system that lets all the libraries check in their books and check them out, place holds, run overdue notices, all of that. This actually came up last year, and we were too far in the budget process for me to put it in. So we're already a year back. I budgeted, when I did my budget last year, in my justifications, I put that we would be needing to do this year. And so I've budgeted for that. The County Library Board approved it at our meeting, and I was wondering if anyone has any questions about this.
I move that we approve the library budget. This is one of those budgets that has a board that oversees it. They have their own money and their own millage, and so I move that we approve the budget. Thank you.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Yes, J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Madam Judge. I realize they have a board, but I've always felt pretty strongly that elected people need to decide how money is spent because we represent the public in that regard, and the board is not elected as far as I know.
They're selected by the mayors of their cities.
Okay. Could I please ask our attorney to tell us the kinds of things that the library's millage must be spent for, just so we all kind of know? I know it's dedicated to the library, but just if we could have a little survey of what the law says about how it's to be spent, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Madam Judge, may I engage
Yes, please.
Justice Madison in a colloquy? Thank you. The library's dedicated millage, much like the road department's dedicated millage, has to be spent on items specific to the library and the administration of the library system. So they may employ library directors, administrators, librarians, for example. They may buy books, as you might suspect, if they periodicals, engage in subscriptions, pay for infrastructure that is directly related to library costs, to include the purchase of real and personal and intangible property. And this particular request that Director Audrain is making tonight would probably fall into the personal and infrastructure categories of what we're talking about. That's a very broad thumbnail sketch. Obviously, you are welcome as a court to infuse general fund monies into the library, but just like the road department dedicated millage, the door doesn't swing the other way. And Director Audrain would not be able to transfer monies into the general millage or general fund if she sought to do that. I don't, Judge, can I ask
Yes.
Glenda, Director Audrain, did I leave anything out in a 90-second survey?
We actually pay the county to be our fiscal agent with that money too. The biggest part of our budget is distributed out to the member libraries based on a funding formula that the board agonized over in order to make the distribution somewhat fair to all, because most of the libraries are smaller, and then we have Springdale. And if you do it strictly per capita, then Springdale gets all the money. If you do it evenly, then it's not fair to Springdale. And so we have a funding formula. Basically, what I have to do is figure out three budgets. I have to figure out, one, what our revenues are. Then two, I have to figure out how much I can give the libraries and still have enough to employ the people in my office and at the Greenland and Winslow branch, because I directly supervise those. All the supplies, library cards, barcodes, operating the equipment, all of those things that go with it. We do have two vehicles that are not taken home. They are used strictly for library purposes. One is used by the courier that makes the rounds between the libraries every day, well, every weekday. And the other one is used by the children's librarian, who goes to the different libraries in the county and provides programming. She sometimes provides 3 programs a day across the county. So what I have to do is I have to figure out how much I can give the libraries, then how much it takes to provide that support for the libraries and supplies. And then I have to prepare that budget for my board. Then I prepare the budget in the county board, which those line items don't always line up with, the overdrive, which is the e-books that we provide. We have a subscription to that. And so we go through, and after I have all that, then I have to balance with a carryover that's adequate enough to carry us through the first 5 months of the next year. Because we don't start we receive some state aid in the first quarter, at the end of the first quarter, but we don't receive the property tax until May. And that's only for the banks and the lenders. Then in October is when our second infusion of money. And so I've got to be able to make sure that we're going to make it to that amount of money. This year, the governor cut state aid to public libraries on the last day of the legislative session. We absorbed.
I respect what you do. I know it's a big job and there's a lot of juggling that goes on. I'm just trying to understand the legal requirements of your millage. And in that regard, since you mentioned that you pay the county for financial services, I wanted to ask our attorney, are there other services the county provides to the library that they don't pay for, like IT, like a building, like cleaning, janitorial service, placing a roof?
I pay a percentage of all those things.
So they're pretty much self-supporting here.
I'm answering this question from experience, not from any particular legal, but legal authority. Director Audrain's budget always was basically self-sustaining when I was on the court. I don't know that there was ever anything that we infused. Now, that may have changed in the 4 years that I've been gone.
I've never asked for anything and don't intend to.
Okay. Maybe this is a model we need to follow.
Now, in answer to your question, Justice Madison, yes, the county, her building sits on the South County campus. Her capital expenditures, like her vehicles, those are all Washington County property. So yes, she gets support from the county at large to do her job and to fulfill her mission.
But she pays for it, is what it sounds like.
She pays at least a portion of it.
It's a percentage of the budget.
Percentage.
Total budget.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you, Madam Judge.
You already answered my question, but I just wanted to ask it for the benefit of the newer members of the court. You're not asking for anything from the general fund. The money's already in your budget to do this.
Correct.
And I think that's the main thing they need to know. We have less problems with this library budget than any budget we deal with. Usually she's in and out of here in like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Thank you. I do want to tell you all, though, even with the cut in state aid, we, with the revenues and everything, we're going to be able to give the member libraries a 3% increase this year over what we gave last year. And I'm pretty proud of that. So, sorry, I had to toot my own horn for a moment.
Rick Cochran.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd.
Yes.
Tom Lindstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison. Joe Maxwell.
Yes.
Gary McHenry.
Yes.
Joe Patterson.
Yes.
Butch Pond. Bill Ussery. Daniel Balls. Harvey Bowman.
Good job, Linda. Thank you
thank
very
you.
much. The next budget we have coming before us is going to be the assessor.
Hello, Russell Hill, Washington County Assessor, and we're wanting to add, I want to address 2 additional deputy assessors, which are entry level. They handle personal property, and then an addition, well, it's not really an addition, it's adding 10 hours to a current position. We had and he was our kind of a GIS tech research analyst. And so addressing the 2 deputy assessors, one thing that we are really excited about is opening an additional office at the Fayetteville Revenue DMV on Razorback Road. We will have, and it'll be very similar to what we have at Springdale, where we'll have 3 assessor stations, and there will also be 2 collectors that will be there. This will alleviate a lot of the traffic that comes to the courthouse here, and will make a lot of sense to the people out in Washington County. Go, why can't we do in Fayetteville what we do in Springdale and do in Lincoln? And so we're very excited that we have partnered with the state revenue. They are renting the space, or we will be renting the space from them at $1 a year. So we found that to be pretty affordable. And we will have some booths and stuff set up and some equipment over there, so we'll be able to service the taxpayers. Hopefully that will put some relief at the Springdale Revenue, because we know a lot of people from Fayetteville travel up there because they don't want to have to come to the county courthouse, go through the metal detector, and then drive down to DMV to renew their tags. So we're really excited about that. My plan for that is we plan to start that in 2016, and we're still going to have people here because people are creatures of habit, and those who we do have a lot of traffic that comes to the Fayetteville office. We will be starting out with sticky notes. I've already ordered those. Those will be here this week, later midweek to the end of this week. And at all of our locations, we're going to start, when people come to assess, we're going to put a sticky note on there. It's in English and Spanish that states that we're going to be opening this new office in Fayetteville, that hopefully in 2016 we'll get people down there quicker. But we will have a lot of people who will come to the Fayetteville office, so we still need to man this here. Meanwhile, open up 2 to 3 stations in Fayetteville to handle the traffic that will be generated there. So that's the need for 1 additional person as a deputy assessor. I'm asking for 2. One is for growth, because and I stated that in my record here. In 2010, we had 89,569 personal property records on file. That's how many we manage. Now, that doesn't mean that we're in it once. We're in these files multiple times. When anybody buys or sells a car during that year, we get in and out of those files. So we're in them on an average 3 to 5 times throughout the year. We're definitely in every one of them at least once a year because everybody has to assess. In 2014, we had 99,033 files that we manage. 2015 will exceed 100,000 records that we keep up with. Each personal property deputy assessor that handles business and personal property, they can manage anywhere between 8 to 10,000 records. And so we're getting to that point to where we were at 9 in 2010. We're at 11 right now. I would like to increase that by 1 more, just from population growth and just the increase of our county's growth. So that's for 1. The second one is with the opening of this office, because we're going to have an additional office. That first year, we're going to need just a little bit of extra help manning this office here full time and opening that one down there. I have a person in my personal property that is retiring in 2017. And so when that person retires, this new person that we hire would just absorb that position. Does that make sense? Okay, so for this year, I'm asking for 2. We're going to lose 1 person next year, and we will not refill that position, because by then everybody will know that they can go down there, and we'll be able to have that adequately filled. It's going to decrease what we have up here, so we won't need that person here for 2017. So, any questions on the deputy assessors, the entry-level ones? Okay.
Will you be vacating this office space here after 2016?
No, we'll still have people that come here for real estate property, and we'll still be able to handle personal property here also. We will house all of our online and all of our phone calls, and so which take 2 to 3 people. Yeah, so we'll have those here, but as people walk in, those people who are doing the online and answering the phone, they'll handle any of the walk-ins that take place.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic idea. I really like it, and my constituents like it as well. I move that we accept this.
I was seconding his motion. Sorry.
This increase is in the present budget, the general budget, correct? Where's this money coming from, I guess is what I'm asking.
What's that?
Where's the money coming from?
Well, it'll come. You guys will be responsible if we're looking at 111,000 increase with everything total.
Right.
Yours is 10,000. So we're a commissioned office, of course. I mean, you've been around long enough; you know how that works.
Right.
So out of the county general it'll be about a $10,000 cost to them.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Mm-hmm.
And I have another question for you, too. Do you drive a vehicle every day home, in a county vehicle?
Yes, I do take one home.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How many do you have in your department?
We have a total of 6.
You have a total of 6.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any of the others besides yourself that use these vehicles to go back and forth?
Yes.
How many, sir?
There are a total of 4. They're all salaried employees. And,
Okay.
Yep.
That's all I
Mm-hmm.
want to know. Thank you.
Any other questions? Jeff Madison.
Judge, this may be addressed to you. We're not considering his entire budget, just the additional positions.
Correct.
That's correct, yes.
It's kind of hard for me to consider this in the context, without having the context of your whole budget, because it looks to me like you've tried to sort of offset some of the additional expenses from these folks by cutting other areas. So
yes.
The increase overall is fairly modest.
Correct.
Okay. And I would say, too, that, your office is one of the few in the county that truly serves the entire county's population. If you live in the city of Fayetteville, in my district, you are still assessing through your office.
Mm-hmm.
And so as the county has grown, your office's needs are growing.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is one of the areas where, as the county grows, your office has to grow in line with that, because you cover every person in every city or in the unincorporated parts of the county as well. And I would say that having this office at the revenue office is going to be great. I mean, I think that's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I really have liked these processes of making that process more efficient and more accessible to folks. So
I agree. I think it's long overdue, and I think it'll be. I think the people in Washington County will greatly appreciate it.
And I have to say also that I think coming to us for 2 positions and saying you're going to be able to phase out one is a really good way to do it with this court.
A good way to do it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that shows
We just needed that one person for 1 year.
I think it shows a lot of planning and foresight on your part. So I appreciate that you've really thought that far ahead.
Right. And on this GIS, it's actually research analyst, we've been paying them in the part-time. And so I took a $17,000 reduction, which is what we were paying that person, took that out of our part-time budget, so to help offset that.
Okay, thank you.
Let me just kind of make sure everybody understands, because J.P. Madison's brought it up. This discussion tonight is just for capital and for additional employees. We're not approving the whole budget, and that is kind of confusing. And I just wanted to make that clear so everyone, we don't want to get into the other stuff, but I just want to make you clear on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I worked all day this morning. I got here early. I was loaded for bear for the whole budget, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, we're only discussing this. Okay, that's a piece of
We'll
cake.
get you later on that.
Yeah.
Any other conversations, any other debate? Do I have a motion on the floor to approve? And I have a second. Carly, would you call the roll, please?
Rick Cochran.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd.
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison. Joe Maxwell.
Yes.
Gary McHenry. Joe Patterson. Butch Pond. Bill Ussery. Daniel Balls. Harvey Bowman.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Russ. The next thing on the agenda is our computer.
Well, hello, everyone. John Adams, the IT director here. There's quite a few things I'd like to first address to let you kind of understand why I'm going to ask for some of the things I'm asking for. In the county, one of the things with computer technology, J.P. Madison, Eva Madison said this earlier, and I thought that was really interesting, is we are the infrastructure for all of these commissioned offices, non-commissioned offices, all offices. We connect everybody together to be able to not just collaborate, but get their communication systems and going. It's been very critical that we keep these systems up, managed, backed up. Some of these things are by law, by regulation, but we went above and beyond in the last couple of years with things in our department. Because we've had a good and a very aggressive programmer, we was able to create a program for the coroner's office that had we went out on the market, it would have been $1 million with all the customizations that Roger Morris needed. We put that in-house. One of the things that was neat about that, do you know where the files were at before we did this? In the trunks of cars or in a file box somewhere. I was down there and a gentleman, a sheriff's deputy, came in and said, I'd like to have a toxicology report from my stepdaughter. And they needed to know the date, the deputy coroner, and all this different type of information to tell them to come back later and they'll have it. Now, when they're out in the field, they have an iPad. They can take pictures, movies, fill in all the information they want, and it comes back up here. And if it crashes after they leave the seat, we've got the information up here and it's backed up. And if you need that report, you can just call up and say, I need John Adams. Well, that's kind of a common name. So it might need date of birth. Would you like that to be emailed to you, faxed? Or would you like me to print it out and you can come and get it? Or you want me to mail it? We've also had the Environmental Affairs program that we put out. They have several, I don't know exactly what the enforcement laws all names are, but they go out in the field and now they have the same type of program. So now they come out to the dump that they looked at and said, well, this is the fifth. I think we talked about that before, where numerous violations may require some action on our part. But do we always remember that? Now that person has all that information right on hand. Again, pictures that they can refer to. Did they do any cleaning? They said they did, but now we have a picture that says they did. We've enhanced the road department program that we bought, and we've put in a road concern application. And this could save the road department a huge amount of time. In that, for example, I saw a pothole or a missing stop sign. I take a picture of it and send it in to Sean. It shows the picture, the GIS coordinates, and he gets that information and can send somebody out to fix that and say, oh my golly, that's a really bad intersection. We need to have it sign up or something to that effect. That saves him time, not having to send somebody out to look at it, to evaluate, and ensure that that's accurate. But we've continued to do that. But unfortunately, the sad part is that programmer has left our county. He resigned about a month ago. I think a couple of you got the chance to meet him. But he resigned, and in his resignation letter that he submitted to us, he said, I'm resigning because I'm overworked. We do all of these programs, and I don't have somebody to back me up. So when they're down, I'm the only guy you can turn to. And, of course, he got paid a little bit more to go somewhere else. But having good quality programmers that we take care of, we could save the county an additional amount of money. There's lots of programs that are out here by third parties that we can bring in-house that we've talked to several elected officials. Today's one huge monumental day. Can anybody tell me what happened in the county today? Today we went live with Kyle Sylvester's program mandated by the state, Contexas. Now, we weren't exactly 100% up, was it? Lots of bugs. But our team, at no cost, was able to go and take care of these things. And by no cost, I mean we have the staff on site, they're trained. Over the last 2 years, my staff, with the training that you guys have provided for them, have ensured that we have certification. So we now have Security Plus certification. All of my employees have Security Plus certification. What does that mean to us as the county? That means they've been trained and recognized by an organization that they can predict or see certain trends going on. And how can we thwart them? By the way, has anybody gotten a virus at home? We all have those things. These are the things we have to look for. These are the programs and applications we need. We've gotten Cisco certified network associates in route and switch and in security for network professionals. So a lot of things have went into our people to help make us that way. I'm asking for 2 employees to help us in the programming so that we can bring these products back into the county and we can save money. And we can have backups. I hate to say it, but some of my guys want to go get married. And I don't really have a true backup other than myself. And if I get consumed with something, wait a minute, who is going to back that person up? But we have to be ensured that we've got these people to help take care of these things and offset it. With that, I'm also replacing a vehicle. It's a 1996 Toyota. You guys kind of can see it out here in the back. I put $5,000 almost in it this year in just repairs. And this vehicle's old and got almost over 3,000 miles or 300,000 miles on it. And it's a stick shift, and most of my team can't drive a stick shift, but it is kind of an unreliable vehicle. But by replacing that vehicle with a vehicle that has a better energy efficiency, be able to haul our tools more securely, we can take that vehicle. And then I need some backup devices. You know, I hate to say it, Russell gave me a lot of work today. With what Russell just told you, it impacts my office. He told you he's going to have 3 assessors and 2 collectors in there. That's 5 PCs, that's 3 printers, that's networking, that's a firewall, that's a switch, that's all these things that we have to put in place. Plus, guess what? When they're down, they're going to call who? They're going to call us. So we'll do it. This year, our help desk calls are going to exceed the previous years by 1,000. And a lot of that really is because we're getting better technology, and some people don't always understand some of these things. They need some help. How do I and what do I? And as we get some of this new technology in, like the Contexus today, somebody that may or may not have tested it or this machine, we got old Java in there. And wait a minute, now we have multiple applications we have to support. And with that today, my entire team spent the day on that product, just to get it out and get it going. When we're getting there, I need 2 backup devices, 1 at each end. And by end, that's the North Campus and the South Campus. This backup device will allow me to continue to back up the growing data that we have in the county. And it should give me an expected growth of 5 years with that. So we will be able to grow into it. That's $125,000 each. So that's $250,000 for the 2 backup devices provided by Dell. That's bought under the state contract, which one of the things that's neat that you need to understand about the state contract is that at the end of the year, we also get a little bit of a rebate for them. And it goes in the general fund, not in my account, but we just put it in general fund, usually $3,000 or $4,000, not a significant amount. But the state contract are people that bid on these services and or products, and we're going to be able to select the one with the lowest bid from the state contract. Also, we're going to look at replacing the fiber cable between North Campus and South Campus. One of the things that we continue to get is a growing need for bandwidth. Okay, as we get more employees, get more people come into our site, we're going to need more bandwidth. One of the ways that I can help alleviate that and try to decrease cost is put fiber between the North Campus and the South Campus, which will cost us somewhere around $100,000. Okay. What that does then gives me the ability to be able to increase the speed without having to call Cox and say, turn up the pipe. Oh, how many dollars do you want for that? So if I wanted to go from the 100 megs that we got now to a gig, that's approximately $5,000 a month, give or take some change, tariffs and taxes, to get that accomplished. And what we're trying to solve is that is our bottleneck right now with that. So with all these things, we just really ask that you consider it. This is a group, Eva, you said it earlier, we support the entire county. We don't just support one little individual place. We support every office in the county. and ensure not just that they have technology that works, but that we have backups. I'm really proud of something that was said this year, and that was the state auditors. The state auditors said we're number one in the security mechanisms within the state of Arkansas. Now, they haven't given us no award or no pat on the back, but we, as Washington County, have been recognized as that. And I also asked tonight several people, if they would, be able to come up and speak as what we've done for their department to help them. I have the comptroller. You guys don't know it, but I have guys that write your reports from the SunGuard system. With the comptroller, prior to us taking over some things and working with them and seeing what it was, they had a time card system. Wait a minute, that's a piece of paper. You wouldn't mind signing this for me. And then they had to manually enter this in. Even though we had a time system that the managers put this in, now we've collaborated that together where at a push of a button, all this stuff from the systems are put into SunGuard for the payroll system. Now the ladies, all they have to do is go through and validate and make sure, spot check on some of that. That saves them at least a half a day, if not a full day, on payroll, which sometimes, if something goes down, a day or half a day is critical to try to get bills paid out with that. We did a lot of work with Glenda, as you mentioned earlier. Sue Madison said that, do we use IT at the library? Yes. Next weekend we're putting in an exchange system for them. So we help them. We also help the health department, the extension agency, and all the other areas within it. And Juliet, Sean from the road and building grounds are here. And I'd love for them to talk and kind of tell you guys what we mean to them, if that's all right. Any objections?
Who wants to come forward and speak in John's behalf?
I'm Juliet Ritchie, the planning director. John just asked me to come say a few words. Some of y'all that were here a couple of years ago, you remember y'all funded a program that we contracted out to be written for our office. It greatly improved our efficiency. And I will say that the success of that program, a lot of it relied on having a good IT department that we could trust and confide in, because that was obviously something that I have zero expertise in. I knew what we wanted, but I didn't know how to bridge that communication with those contractors. And so they were available, for weekly meetings with us, with those contractors. We got a program that works well for us. Our IT helped us make sure it was written in a language to where our IT department can perform specific fixes for us instead of us having to go back to those contractors. Helped us get a contract where we didn't have to pay maintenance fees and things like that that we were looking at with other off-the-shelf programs. So just as a department head, it's critical for me to have people that I can rely on to help us make the best decisions when we're looking at major IT purchases. And again, we confer with them all the time on when we buy any equipment, make sure it's going to work with the system. As technology's changed, we rely a lot on being able to integrate with other departments' technology at the county, most importantly, the assessor's office. The program that we have is built to directly link into their system as far as retrieving tables that have property owner data in them and their parcels information, which we use to make our maps and to do notifications for when projects are coming, property owner notifications in the area and things like that much more efficiently. I mean, we literally used to have to do them by hand, but when you utilize more technology and you connect into multiple systems, then of course it becomes more complicated. And there have been times when things needed to change table-wise in the assessor's office, the way they're exporting data and the way our systems are connecting into it. I mean, it's inevitable that things will have to switch and adjust, and having people who are knowledgeable to help us keep up and running is critical. And I do think it's critical to have good people and educated people in those positions. And I hope that they're able to keep attracting good talent to keep all of us supported. I just feel like we can't work efficiently unless we have a good technology team behind us. And I also feel the day and age that we live in, the citizens, they demand things to be available on a technological basis. And I understand, I work all day too, and when I come home and I need to access different things, looking to assess your vehicle or whatever, the ability to do all those things online is so great, and we're able to get all of our meeting information online, keep that posted, have interactive maps. And again, it would be pretty much impossible to do that without a department. And I think that things are just going to continue to increase technologically wise what we need. I mean, I can see changes on the horizon even for us, and I can't even imagine what the other departments see. And as we have to move more and more technologically wise, then we're going to need even greater support. So that's all I had to say. I think they do a good job, and I think that we need to keep moving in that direction if possible.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Juliet, before you leave, I have a couple questions for you, Juliet. That's okay. The new software that was kind of jointly developed, it was contracted and we had our fingers in the pie pretty well. By putting that in, I know you achieved some savings over market price. Yes. And got something better than what we would have gotten, just a canned package. Do you recall what the maintenance fees for those other products were?
I don't. I could do some research and look. It's been a couple years.
Just a ballpark.
Oh, I don't
know. 10 to 20,000.
I was thinking 10 or 15.
Okay,
but
that was my memory, but okay. So basically, what we're saying is the IT department actively is saving $10,000 to $15,000 just through the service of your department every year.
Yes, right I would say that's true.
On top of that, had we gone with another program that wasn't quite as interconnecting to the other systems that you mentioned, the assessor's department, all like that, has that saved you personnel cost?
I would say yes.
Half person?
Probably so. I mean,
what's the base cost of a half person for a year?
Just salary wise?
Yeah. No benefits
that'd
or
probably
anything,
be
basic,
another,
basic salary.
depending on what our basic planner position pays about $33,000. So
okay, so 15,000 saved right there, plus some benefits.
Right.
So basically, one major project has saved around $25,000 to $30,000 every year going on for the investment that our IT team has done. Very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
As John mentioned, his team is going to be replacing our Exchange server, which is no longer supported by Microsoft. So we met with a group that would get the specs and to see how much they would charge to do this. And by John and his team doing the installation, they're going to save us $12,000. I do nearly all of our IT work in-house except for these big things, and then I have to have assistance because basically technology has passed me very quickly and it's hard to keep up to speed. And so it's nice to be able to rely on John and his team, and I don't have to spend all of my time learning all of the new networking functions. And so I really appreciate that. And I might go a year and not call John, but when I need him, I need him. And it's nice to be able to know that there's someone there that understands. We're not part of the county network. I have my own network. But again, a portion of a percentage is taken out each year of my budget for those, what do you call it? Overhead, for overhead. And I think we're really lucky to have the IT staff we have, and I appreciate them. So,
Good evening, everyone. Jeannie Mack at the Juvenile Detention Center. Nice to see you. Not only does the IT team obviously take care of our computer system, but our most critical security system being the cameras. We not only pay attention to what the kids are doing at JDC, but it protects my staff as well, because you know that liability is a very big part of our job at JDC. Those cameras go down and we have kids that are either violent or suicidal. We have no way of monitoring them without putting another staff person right there at the door with them all night, which means calling in someone, and we will be paying overtime for that. John and his team have been to the facility probably in excess this year of 100 times. A car could hit a pole and it knocks out our security system, and they come right just like that to fix that. So we're very appreciative of the quick responses that we get. Also, our governor has appointed a new board. Some of you might have heard about that, the Juvenile Reform Board. And one of the big topics is the discussion of education in detention for juveniles. This is a very critical area. Our kids in Arkansas are not maneuvering well through the education when they're detained. This is going to require a lot of new equipment, which I will not be asking the county for any of that because we're getting it through our grant in aid. We're going to Chromebooks. John has helped us with that the last, about 3 years, John? We've been discussing this because we saw that this was coming because it has been a very critical issue in Arkansas. Working with the IT department at Fayetteville, we've devised a plan where we believe that we can keep the kids in school at their normal schools if they're in JDC, and it'll be using these Chrome devices. And John has agreed to assist us with that. So this is going to be something huge. Kids will be reformed and be able to keep up with their schoolwork and not have to go to the Division of Youth Services, the state. And hopefully this will work with the kids, and their schoolwork will count while they're in detention, because in the past it has not. So, thank you.
So as you can see, that we're kind of critical. And tonight I asked my whole team to come, and I'm very proud of them. If they would, just stand up back here. But this is the ladies and gentlemen that takes care of our employees, our elected officials here. We have Jonathan, Andrea, Lisa, Cody, Alan, Dustin, and Sydney. This weekend, 2 of them worked the entire weekend. They're tired. So you guys can go on home. Okay. But thank you all so much. I appreciate the time and opportunity to be able to do this. I also encourage each and every one of you, want to know more about what we do and what types of things we try to save the county, please come to our office. You don't even have scheduled time. If you just give me a call and shout, if I can break away, I'll do it. But I assure you, my goal for us as a county is try to think of the future and what we need and make sure that we plan for it accordingly so it isn't one big expense like what happened to us, Tom, when we started this 5 years ago.
J.P. Dennis has a question.
Oh, I have a testimonial.
Okay.
So I'm Robert Dennis, JP number 10, and Freedom of Information Act just scared me to death, and when we had to turn everything in, I couldn't get it to work on my computer, and I tried for hours. I mean hours. Just all I could do is one at a time. And so I went to the computer department upstairs and in their little bitty office, and they gave me the tour, but they also downloaded all my emails, and then I took them over to the Northwest Arkansas Democrat Gazette and gave them a disc. So I appreciated that a lot. And I told the young man that I said I promised him a raise for doing what he did. And then he up and quit. So in spirit, I'll just give his raise to all of y'all. Thank you.
J.P. Aki.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Adams, could you tell me what grade level your two programmers are going to be coming in at?
Those are 25s.
At 25s?
Yes.
It seems a little high to me.
We can discuss that anytime you wish.
Okay.
Just drop by.
The other thing I'd like to talk about is on all three of these requests, if you were to prioritize 1, 2, 3, and you can't all have ones, and then y'all can't have one and a half.
We did that last year, guys. Didn't work so well.
I wasn't around.
I know you wasn't. But example that we could learn from last year. You know, we sat down and we said, John, we're not going to be able to give you all this because we don't have enough money. And we ended up actually spending that money that year because the items that we were talking about not only just saved us money, we replaced the fax program and the voice over IP.
Mm-hmm.
So it saved a considerable amount of money because of the way AT&T was doing these things. Guys, it is very difficult for me to prioritize these because these are things that come in from the elected officials in the different departments to be able to do this. If I had to say I had to do something, I'll wait till we get ready to the end of the budget when you guys make your final decision. And then we can see, where are we at? What are we doing? Do we have enough money to do it? Because I'll be the first to work with you. If there's no money, guys, we can do it. I will help you.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate it.
You bet.
Thank you.
John, I mean, we went of the amount of money we just saved with the planning board. Could you kind of fill us in on the other departments, probably, of the programs and things, and the amount? Now, you said the corners.
Yes, ma'am.
The corners program, you did it in-house and saved.
Roger Morris went out and looked at products, and it was going to cost him $1 million to do that. And we looked at that with him. He looked at L.A. County in California. They had the Primo product. It was much more expensive than that for him, but it would have cost us $1 million.
Okay, how much did it cost you?
It cost me one person's time for 6 months.
One person's time
For 6 months.
for 6 months.
So if we were to divide that down, we would say that it was approximately $35,000 to $40,000.
Okay, so we put a program in, $35,000 to $40,000, that if we'd gone outside and bought the program, plus
The
it would
maintenance.
probably the license and
Yes,
everything
ma'am.
with the program,
Maintenance
that's
and
an
license
additional
fees.
money, and the technician that comes with that, you know, they want to take care of their own programs, so that's additional money.
You're correct.
So let's just say, you know, another $80,000 probably saved.
Yeah.
What about the road department?
The road department, all the additions that we did to that would have cost, if we'd went with the vendor that we used before, which was AOS, they wanted $250 an hour and would only do it at time and materials. So what time and materials means is I got a blank check and I don't know how much it's going to be. We may have a statement of work that says we're going to do this things, but, oh, by the way, we got in here and you didn't tell me about this. So there's a change order, if you will, that could drive that cost up. I have to work on fixed cost, but $250 to $225 an hour, and it would have taken them about 15 hours just to do one report. So we
How
could have
long did
probably
it take? How long did it take your people to develop this program?
Well, the various different combinations of those things, the reports and the road department concern apps, all those things were done in approximately a couple months time frame. Now
But
that's
they didn't work on them every day. They just worked on
as we got time, and not just one person.
because you have the upkeep of all the computers in the county are in this building.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You know, this is really a lot of money. It really is.
It is.
But we've kicked that can down the road for 5 years. We've cut you every year. And it's like, now, On number 3, we've got $350,000 for fiber cables replacement.
Fiber cables and for backup devices. So again, we
Okay.
broke that down earlier, and that the 2 backup devices are going to cost $250,000, and the fiber cable is going to cost $100,000.
Okay. Okay. What kinds of backup devices are these? What kinds of, I just ask you because I
That's a
don't
really
know.
good question. So to kind of help understand better what our backup systems do for us, in days of old, it used to be just a tape, much like our old 8-tracks. I think many of us remember those. But now it's on disk. It's hard drives. And then we have to move that off-site. So if I was to go off-site and take it to a center, it's going to cost me approximately $7,000 a month to move our data off-site through an internet connection, and that's only for 1/10 of it, which we would consider our most critical at that moment. $7,000 for 1/10. These devices will be big hard drives, if you will, they call a SAN. And that SAN has multiple hard drives in there, redundancy built in, so if one fails, another takes over. And it also has the warranties on it so we can replace those drives. Having one down at the South Campus, one at the North Campus, then we are able to have that backed up there at the South Campus, backed up here, should we need it. Now we have it off-site because we also rotate it during the night from north to south and south to north.
Now, am I still? Okay, on these fiber cables, are we physically putting in fiber cables from,
Bury them, yep. Now,
physically from this courthouse to the South Campus?
we already have some of that already in place through Cox.
Through
So
Cox,
This
okay.
would be a private fiber, not
Right.
a public fiber. So we share this fiber with Cox. So what Cox does is they want to turn it up. It's a cost. So in the fiber, if you can imagine a lot of little hair strands, there's a number of strands that you can put in these. It's just fiberglass. But the more strands you have, the more accessibility you have to increase your bandwidth. Today, I just have 2 strands. If I had the ability to have 6 strands that go up down there, then I can increase that bandwidth as needed. So today I might not need the whole fiber strand, but I don't have to run another one next year. And the fibers usually last about 20 years. So once we put this in, we're going to save approximately $4K a month from Cox for our internet, between there and there. Plus we gain the bandwidth. And because it's ours, we've paid for it, and if you can say appreciated it over 20 years. So we'll have the ability to increase that.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Justice Harbison, you are learning. Very good, very good. Well, it seems not too long ago, my first term here, you were just barely here. You're a pup here. You'd only been here maybe 6 or 8 months. You came in and asked this court for about $750,000 and 13 JPs. 12 of them were having a heart attack.
Yep.
And in that finance committee meeting, I stood up and in citizen comment time, stood
Yes.
up for the IT department and what they needed because I had seen how bad we were.
Yeah.
You've taken us a long way. You've taken a lot of money too. But tonight you're starting to show some of the fruits of our investments. And I do appreciate that. We're finally seeing some. I know that there's been some other departments that have not had to add people because of your efforts.
Yes.
They haven't come forward and specifically said so, but just the one example with the planning department, when you can keep a part-time person to part-time or not have to add another person, it does add up. The Justice Harbison asked some of the questions I was going to ask, but on the backup devices, your SANs, you do have UPS with them, correct?
Yes, sir, they
Okay.
are there.
As far as the fiber installation, once we get it in the ground, if something disturbs it and we have a problem, what is our repair process? Who's involved?
We have an insurance policy that will cover that. Cox uses Cablevision Internet to be able to splice their cables after hours, and we'll have a service level agreement with them.
Okay.
And so, for example, if somebody digs something up, they'll have a specific amount of time to respond to us to get us back up.
Right. Any thought to doing a redundant route with Cox?
We could. Right now for cost, because I know some of the things that we're talking about, I haven't pursued that just yet.
Okay. I understand it is more expensive, but it also means you have 2 ways to get there if one goes down.
And we do in our phone system. So if we remember, North Campus has a way out and South Campus. So if we were to lose that, our phone system or an emergency system still stay up.
Correct.
And with these things in place, South Campus can be self-sufficient for a short period of time, provided they don't need to come up here and get something. Short, meaning that if I need to send an email, maybe I can wait a little bit for that, certainly.
Well, I think it was 4 years ago you came and asked us for 3 additional staff. And over the last 3 years, we've given you 1.
Yes, sir.
You guys have shown us what you can do.
Thank you.
I'm going to move that we pass your full request.
Thank you.
Second.
Have a motion and a second.
Thank you, Madam Judge. How many vehicles does your department have?
We have 3 vehicles.
And what are they used for?
One is used only by one person because it's that stick shift we talked about earlier. The other 2 vehicles, once they arrive here on site, they are pool vehicles. So one I have, I go to meetings, go to wherever I need to go, and the employees can use them as well. We have a vehicle that was donated to us by the DEM 911. It's the old red, I don't remember exactly what the adjectives were they used, but this truck has about 200,000 miles, but it was donated to us as well. And each one of those
I'm
trucks,
losing
too,
track of what you said. You have 3.
That's correct. 3.
Does that include the one that was donated?
Yes, that's where
Okay.
it came from.
And it includes the stick?
Yes. And
Okay. And they're all pool vehicles?
Once you get here, these team members use it as they need it. There are times when they're all busy, the 3 trucks, so sometimes they have to use their personal vehicle, but for the most part, we try to pool them together.
Are they all pool vehicles?
Yes.
Yes. No vehicles go home with anybody ever?
Yes, they do go home. Once they arrive on site, all of the staff can utilize those vehicles to go anywhere they need to go.
I'm confused. Once they arrive on site, that's at the job.
Mm-hmm. Here at
They
the
can
courthouse
use
or
the
wherever.
vehicle to go to Walmart, to go home? What? I don't know what you mean.
I confused myself then. When the vehicle arrives at the courthouse at the beginning of the day, any of the staff on my team that needs the vehicle can grab the key, put it in the car, and drive to the work site, whether that be down at JDC. But yes, you mentioned Walmart. I had to go today to Walmart to buy some thumb drives to be able to get some data down to the state.
I understand
So, yes,
trips
we'll
like
go
that.
do
I'm
that.
talking about personal trips.
Yeah.
Where was the vehicle before it arrived at the courthouse in the morning?
Mine was at the house.
At your house?
Yes.
So you're taking a vehicle home every day?
Yes.
How far away do you live?
I live 48 miles round trip. It takes approximately 1 gallon of gas for one trip.
And you're driving the stick?
No.
You're not. What are you driving?
I'm driving the blue GMC Canyon.
Is that a 4-wheel drive vehicle?
Yes, it does. It's also an extended cab, but I inherited it. So I didn't get the choice to pick that vehicle. And many times,
where is the logic that provides you a vehicle to go home every night? Where is your home?
my home is in Rogers, right next to Valerie Brewer's from the assessor's office. Now, I think that's for a different conversation than that.
Well, you're
What the
asking for
justification
$25,000 for a replacement vehicle. If that vehicle weren't going home.
When I was hired, that was part of my package.
You were told it was part of your compensation.
That's correct.
Who told you that?
The chief of staff at the time, Dan Short.
We're going to have to stop back and forth again. We need to ask a question, we need to answer it, and then we need to move on.
I believe that's what we're doing. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the other vehicles, are any of them going home at night?
I have most of those vehicles go home for somebody that's on call. My database administrator, it's also part of his salary.
So there's none that rotate on the going home?
Not going home necessarily.
So 3 people in your office take a vehicle home every day?
Correct.
Thank you, Madam Judge.
Thank you, Madam Judge. I think when you came to us last year, I remembered you only had 2 vehicles. So where did the third vehicle come from?
I had 3 vehicles last year.
Okay,
One was donated from DEM, the red truck.
Okay.
And then we had the 2 others from my previous predecessor.
Okay. So let me ask you then, If they're treated as part of your compensation package, are you aware whether the county taxes them at the $1.50 commuting rate or at some other rate?
I pay $780 per vehicle for the use of that vehicle per year.
Okay, so it's
for each one of those. Yes.
It's the dollar. You're charged $1.50.
I'm not sure what the daily rate is, but $780 a year.
Do you have to keep a mileage log?
No.
Okay. Well, then you would have to use the commuting rate. So if it's part of your compensation package, then the commuting rate says that the reason it's going home with you every night is because of...
Yeah, I'm unfamiliar with those rules. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, is it still your impression as you sit here today that the taking a vehicle home is part of your compensation
Yes,
package? Okay. Where do the other two vehicles go at night?
One goes to Lincoln and one goes to Bella Vista.
And when you said that, do the other two vehicles other than yours, are they going home with different people each night or the same people?
Same people.
Okay.
And the Bella Vista is the one that's got it for his salary benefit.
So you
Same person offered him that as well.
When I counted everybody when you stood up, it looks like you have 8 employees total. So what happens when one of the people that doesn't have a car is on call?
We deal with that at that time.
Well, how do you deal with it?
You know, we haven't had that opportunity in a long time, but most of it is if it's on call, I'm the one that usually gets the first call, and then I can make a decision as to what I need to do. Alan's out in the west part of the county, so if it's something out in the Lincoln direction, we take care of that out that direction with him. And Sydney was the one that had to come in and work all this weekend and take stuff different particular places.
So the employees that don't have vehicles are never on call then?
Not never.
Well, I thought part of the justification for sending the cars home was because people were on call.
I didn't say that, did I?
Okay. I thought you
No, I
did
don't
say that
believe
it was
so.
the other two went home because they were on call. Okay, well, so talk about a situation where you get a call at home. Why would you need to have a vehicle versus being able to use your personal vehicle?
You know, those are probably operational things that I have not had the opportunity to be able to discuss with anybody. I wasn't aware that you were going to ask these questions tonight, so I'd have to sit down and think about those things. I would appreciate if we had those questions up front. That way I could look at them and say, well, here's why, because you're talking about an operational thing. What if? Well, a lot of what ifs happen in my world, and each day we have to do particularly different things. But to sit here and talk about the vehicles and why they go home and where they go home, I'm not prepared to talk about tonight.
Mr. Adams, we've been discussing this issue for like a year and a half, so I'm not sure.
It was resolved last year. I don't understand why it came up this year.
It wasn't resolved. The committee was dissolved is how it worked. But,
No.
But I guess my question, though, is you receive calls at your home off hours. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And my question was, what makes, since you've had that happen already in the past, what I'm trying to figure out is why you need a county vehicle versus being able to use your personal vehicle.
All of our vehicles are equipped with all of our tools that we need. Should I need to go someplace, for example, to the GADC, we have the tools in our vehicle so we can immediately respond and fix those items that we need. The little Toyota is equipped with a special pull-out bed so that we can put the equipment we need on it and slide it in and out without having to crawl in on our hands and knees. But all of them have all of our equipment that we need to be able to respond in an emergency situation.
Madam Judge, I'd like to make a motion to amend this request to take off the $25,000 vehicle. I just don't think this department has the justification for 3 vehicles, and I think if the vehicle is high mileage and not usable, then they should deal with 2. I think we are spending as a county far too much for people to do 48 miles round trip for personal mileage at taxpayer expense, and I think we're never going to get this resolved in a committee and the full issue this budget process. But at some point, we're going to have to take a stand that this is not how we want taxpayer dollars spent. There's no business justification for these vehicles going home. This is a part of a compensation package, and it's part of a compensation package that this court has not approved, and this court sets compensation. Mr. Adams is very well paid, and I'm not criticizing your salary. I think that market-wise, that's warranted. But to add on a vehicle on top of that, I can't justify that. I can't justify taxpayers paying for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. At an earlier committee meeting when we were over at the Sheriff's Annex, Lindsay Huffaker made the comment that there are no vehicles set up in such a way that they're part of compensation. So your statement that it was given to you by Dan Short, it's not recorded in the HR department. And with that, I will accept Justice Madison's motion as a friendly amendment and a call for question.
So we have to, we're ready for roll call.
No,
Well-
you have to vote on whether you're going to close debate, and that's.
Thank you, Judge. I think most of us appreciate the efficiencies that you bring by automating things and doing the IT half of that, and it sounds like it's been very helpful for very, very different departments. The one thing that I struggle with is when I do the math on the IT's budget, you're about 1.7% of the general fund budget when I'm looking on page 73. But your increase that you're asking for is about 25% of the total $2.3 million that are being asked. And so I think one of our challenges here is to weigh all of the good ideas and all of the good projects, because we can't fund them all, obviously, and decide which ones we fund first and which ones we fund second, or which ones get left at the last. So can you just kind of help me understand? I mean, that's a 25% of the total increase when your budget is less than 2% of the total budget of that group. Can you help me kind of understand how that, how you got to that number and how you were able to make that large of a request, I guess?
So many of the things that I purchase and put on the budget that you're referring to is items that we have to have. Those are things, contracts, license, maintenance fees, other things that we need. The capital expenditures and things that we're talking about tonight, and how I came to those conclusions of things, is this is the needs that we have in the county. The county isn't shrinking, as all of you have said. It's continuing to grow. And each and every one of us have a responsibility to provide those services. For me to continue doing the things that I do, I need these people, and I need these products.
I just hope that you kind of understand with us. I know the Election Commission is here right behind you, and we have several other people that also have very justifiable needs.
You all have a very tough job.
Right. And unfortunately, we don't have the ability to go ask for more money. Those revenues are set from last year's.
You know, I would almost disagree with that. And the reason I say that is you all have talked earlier about the millage. You know, unfortunately in the county, one of the problems, and you guys have had a rough time, you know, the millage was reduced, and many of you weren't responsible for that. But that reduction in millage is the percent perhaps that we are missing to be able to help things, that we could keep the revenues up and keep the revenues and the reserves up.
If I may, though, for 2016, that's already set. So this is the budget we're discussing, and that's where our hands are tied. We don't have the ability to go.
And I submit this. I've submitted what I need to work.
Right. Thank you.
Yes, Jane.
Mr. Adams, I'm curious about whether or not you've looked into remote support.
We do an awful lot of remote support.
And are you able to do that from home?
Yes.
So tell me about the type
internet connection ourselves.
Tell me about the types of calls then that you handled. Some examples of
what Ms. Mack just came up and told you. Oftentimes we may have to go down there to where there's a camera down. We have to go in and run wire, run cabling, and fix things. Oftentimes when a machine dies, we can't just remote into it and fix it. And that happens quite frequently, where a machine just dies for whatever reason. We have to replace parts.
Are these after-hour calls? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Last year at the JDC, we'd had 150 emergency calls. I'm not last year, this year. 150 emergency calls where we had to respond.
Okay.
25 of those was for remote support. The rest of those needed to be there on site.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Judge.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. We have an amendment. So do we want to, do I have a motion to continue, or do we need to stop debate here?
Judge, the main mover accepted Justice Madison's amendment.
Yes.
So that, as amended, is what y'all will be voting on.
Are we ready for?
My understanding is it's Justice Cochran moved initially to accept the entire proposal as presented by Mr. Adams. Justice Madison moved to strike the $25,000 request for a vehicle. Justice Cochran accepted that, so you'd be voting on the entire package less the $25,000 for the vehicle.
Rick Cochran? Yes. Robert Dennis? No. Lisa Ecke? Yes. Ann Harbison? Yes. Sharon Lloyd? No. Tom Lundstrom? No. Eva Madison? No. Sue Madison? No. Joe Maxwell? No. Gary McHenry? Yes. Joe Patterson? No. Butch Pond? No. Bill Ussery? No. Daniel Balls? Yes. Harvey Bowman?
No, you can reconsider, but somebody who voted against it would have to call for that reconsideration. And, Judge, I'm not hearing that. Then you're on to your next agenda item.
I'd call for the reconsideration, because what I was voting against was the $25,000 on the car.
Okay. Hold on a second.
So
Okay, go ahead.
You can have a different opinion on this, but the way you worded the motion and then you did the friendly part of it changed the motion, the original motion, completely. And so that was almost like an amendment. We didn't get to vote on that amendment, so I was voting no, that I was not in favor of voting no on the car part.
Okay.
So therefore, I reconsider it, and I would move that we accept it as is. Second.
The motion to reconsider can be made at this meeting. It has to be made at this meeting. It has to be made by somebody who voted in the. So
that was me.
Justice Dennis is an appropriate person for that, and it can be seconded by anyone.
Second.
Thank you.
Now, it is not debated. Motion to reconsider. And you're not, okay, so I can be clear. You're voting to reconsider. You're not voting. This has to pass for you to vote again on Justice Cochran's main motion.
You're voting to reconsider that now.
What's the vote? Is it simple majority?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Call the roll, please.
Wait, I'm still not clear.
Does everyone understand what they're voting on?
No.
The motion is to reconsider the vote on Justice Cochran's amended version of his original motion. This is confusing, but I'll get there. Okay? The motion failed, meaning you just turned down Mr. Adams' request in its entirety. Okay? Justice Dennis, who voted against it, voted to bring it back up or moved to bring it back up. It was seconded. Now you're voting simply on whether you're going to vote again on the main motion.
Rick Cochran? Yes. Robert Dennis?
Yes.
Lisa Ecke?
No.
Ann Harbison? Yes. Sharon Lloyd? No. Tom Lundstrom? No. Eva Madison? No. Sue Madison? No. Joe Maxwell? No. Gary McHenry? No. Joe Patterson? No. Butch Pond?
Yes.
Bill Ussery?
No.
Daniel Balls?
No.
Harvey Bowman?
No.
You're welcome.
Or capital and employees. break. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call the Quorum Court back into order, and we'll go ahead and continue with our business. The next thing we have on the agenda is our election commissioners. Proceed.
Keep pushing the middle, right in the middle.
Slide your finger across.
Yeah, there you are.
Okay.
And I'll turn.
Good evening. I am Renee Oschlager. For those of you who don't know me, I am the chairman of the Washington County Election Commission. Behind me, I have Commissioner Max Deichler, and Commissioner Bill Ackerman was not able to be with us tonight. He's out of town. He sends his regrets. I also have behind me Jennifer Price. She is the face of elections in this courthouse and does a great job. And I also have programmer extraordinaire, pick up your hand, Lynn Hodge, who is here without compensation tonight simply because she's very dedicated to the elections in Washington County. Now, I thought I'd start out, Jennifer's going to give you the real scoop, but I wanted to mention the duly elected members of the Quorum Court know something about elections. The appointed members of the body maybe don't know as much about elections, but you all know it from that side of the table. And I wanted to, for the benefit of the appointed members, give you a little information from our side of the table. And I just thought I'd start with the Fayetteville September 8th election, which just recently happened, to give you some idea of what we go through every election. Our election staff started on Saturday, the 5th. They started working on this election to get it set up. They worked Sunday, the 6th. They worked Monday, Labor Day, the 7th. And then before the polls opened at 7:30 in the morning on Tuesday morning, they were out and doing things, and they continued to work until, well, the polls closed at 7:30 that night. And of course, the ballot boxes are returned to the courthouse at that time. And for a county-wide election, the ballot boxes would be coming from the far corners of the county. Sometimes it takes quite a while for those to show up here at the courthouse. But because this was exclusively a Fayetteville election on September the 8th, the boxes came in fairly quickly, and we were able to get out of here at around 9:30 in the evening, which was a pretty nice thing to do. But whatever the election is and however long it takes, whether it lasts and we don't complete it until 9:30 one night, or we go until the next day and count ballots into the wee hours of the morning, we stay and we don't leave until all of the votes are counted. The candidates and the citizens of Washington County expect that of us, and they want election results. They're not concerned. If we can't deliver these results in an expeditious fashion, we take the heat. So with that said, with due respect to all the members of the Quorum Court, our ballot counting usually starts around 7:45. So when the Quorum Court adjourned last Tuesday at about 7:45, we were kind of disappointed. We were ready. We were prepared to present our budget to y'all. And so, there was some frustration there. However, we appreciate your letting us come back tonight to start off where we ended on at 7:45. We had been waiting since 5:30 that night. But we appreciate the opportunity to get back to it. I want you to know that our staff is unique. They're not considered full-time employees, so they're not eligible for county bonuses or increases in salary that might go across the board for all county employees. They're not counted in those. We don't have any vehicles. However, a number of our staff members use their personal vehicles, and often they don't submit mileage reimbursement requests. This is the kind of people these are, and these are not complaints. These are just, I want you to understand how it is on this side. As we discuss the details in our budget, I want you to be aware that these people are dedicated and motivated, and we make every effort as we go through the expenses every year, whether it's an election year or a non-election year. Even on non-election years, we often had lots of elections. But I want you to understand that these people, they're not being compensated sometimes like other employees in the county, but they really love what they do. They're dedicated, they're motivated, and our budget is usually quite frugal. So with that, I will turn the details over to Jennifer Price, and you can talk to her. Thank you.
Okay, where to start? As all of you know, next year will be a presidential year, and we expect the voter turnout to be anywhere from 70% to 75% for that election year. Back in 2004, that was the largest election year we had ever seen. We had 88,000 registered voters, and we had a 73% voter turnout. This year, in 2015, right now we have 117,000 registered voters. We expect that that number will continue to increase well into 2016. If we have a 75% voter turnout, we will reach the same amount of registered voters that we had in 2004. So that's over 88,000 people casting their ballots just for the presidential election that year. As the population increases and our number of registered voters increase, our needs increase. And so that's why I've come to you for more voting equipment and more money and personnel for the expected expenditures for the presidential year. In 2006, the HAVA Act gave the state of Arkansas and most states money to buy voting equipment. That was the last time we had updated our voting equipment. In 2006, we had around 88,000 registered voters in Washington County. That money that we were given from the HAVA Act purchased 171 touchscreens for us and 3 central counting machines that we use on election night. When the state of Arkansas and the Secretary of State's office looked at replacing voting equipment, because our voting equipment is now well over 10 years, we program our elections on XP. You can't buy XP computers anymore. The voting equipment that we have is not able to be updated, and it's breaking down on us. Mechanically, the locks are breaking, the legs on the booths are breaking, the printers are breaking down. So it's very obvious just across the state and actually across the nation that we need new voting equipment. The $30 million was allocated for new voting equipment, and then that money was then allocated to each county. When the Secretary of State's office used their numbers, they used numbers from 2006. Not the current numbers that Washington County is at currently. So while 41 counties lost registered voters, we gained registered voters, yet every county received the same amount of equipment that they received back in 2006. So I didn't want to come to the Quorum Court and ask for money for voting equipment. The first thing we did when we saw what was being funded, we went to the Secretary of State's office. We wrote letters. We wrote letters to the governor's office, to our local representatives and senators, asking them to help us ask the Secretary of State's money to rethink how they would allocate the funding. So far, that hasn't worked. And so now I'm before the Quorum Court asking that you help fund $420,000 to get the appropriate amount of voting equipment that we need to go forward. One of the things that the Election Commission did this year, Renee touched on a little bit, was we did vote centers. And that worked for the school election and for the September 8th City of Fayetteville election. What we saw from vote centers was, with very little advertisement on our part, 21% of the voters that cast their ballots on that September 8th election actually cast ballots at polling places that wasn't their normal polling place. Central United Methodist and Trinity Methodist saw almost 50% of the ballots cast at their polling place were from voters outside that polling place. It was very nice for the voters who had address changes. They didn't have to call, we still called the county clerk, but they didn't then have to get another piece of paper, go to another polling place, let that supervisor look them up, and cast a ballot. They were able to get their address changed and then cast their ballot at the polling place that they were at. Especially college students, that's where we see a lot of voters with the address changes. At Presbyterian, we heard mothers who dropped their kids off at school that morning, how wonderful it was that they could just then go in and cast their ballot. That's the future that we see for elections in Washington County. We hope to offer vote centers across the county so that on election day, the voters can cast their votes at the polling place that they may be closest to at the most convenient time for those voters.
You ready for questions?
Sure. I'm not sure how much more you want.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Judge.
I thought you were me first.
Did you recognize?
Me?
Oh.
I'll write your name.
I voted for the first time on a touch screen because I don't trust them. But can you compare the cost of paper ballots and the counting machines that always seem to get gummed up with the touch screens?
Yes. Right now, this is what you voted on. When you voted on the touch screen, this is what's in the touch screen. This roll costs $18 a roll. And if we only use part of it, sometimes we don't load them back up in the touchscreens election night or for the next election, because changing the paper on the current touchscreens that we have right now is one of the most difficult jobs our poll workers have. They dread that more than anything. So you never want to start them out with a partial roll. So a lot of times after an election, you end up with partial rolls. With the new voting equipment, this is what every ballot will look like. And then this is only 9 cents a ballot. And we only use what votes we cast. So if I ordered, say, 50,000 of them, but I only had 40,000 votes cast for that election, I've got 10,000 that I can still use for the next election.
Well, I really meant, considering the machines and everything, what's the net cost per vote for paper or machine?
For paper, I guess it's not a number I really ran. When we're looking at voting equipment, we're looking to go away from paper ballots. So paper ballots are about 35 cents a paper ballot. And then the voting machine, we're still looking to keep one central count machine, because we'll still have paper ballots for early vote and we'll still have absentees. That new voting equipment for the central count is about $115,000 just for one of those. That's why we only want one, and then spend the rest of our money on touchscreens. Now, the Secretary of State's office is allocating close to $1.5 million just for Washington County. But like I said, the numbers that they're giving us don't match the numbers that we need for the growth that's been in Washington County. So that's why we're looking at the additional touchscreens, or express votes is what they'll be called.
What does one of the machines cost that counts the paper ballots?
One of the new ones will cost $115,000.
And how many do we have?
Well, right now we have 3, but those didn't cost near that much. But to replace those, all 3, it would be over $300,000. Of course, the new machines are better and count faster, but we want to just purchase one of those machines and then invest the rest of the money in the express votes that you would see on Election Day.
Are the old machines
They
nearing
will
the
be.
end of their life?
Basically, all the old equipment that we have will no longer be usable. It will all be traded in, and then that's part of the deal with the Secretary of State's office. So all of that old equipment will go away. And so when we get the new voting equipment, one of the pieces that we're looking at will be a central count still, because you'll still have absentee ballots, early vote ballots, and some Election Day ballots. But we want to make sure that we have enough touchscreens, or they're called express votes now, that we can then move forward and go with vote centers on Election Day. And in order to do that, we would need about 324 of those express votes.
If we go to vote centers, they won't have paper ballots, right?
They would have a limited number of paper ballots.
Okay.
And what we found was, I was surprised on, for the September 8th election, this was the first election we had ever done it where we kept telling the voting population that it's going to be touchscreen only, touchscreen only. Out of the 10,400 votes that were cast on Election Day, we only had 32 paper ballots cast. So we ended up with about 32 voters who just did not want to vote on that touchscreen. And so we made accommodations for those voters so that we didn't want any voter to walk out the door and not be able to cast their vote.
Well, I voted in a congressional race in another state one time where the old lever machines in one precinct that was heavily one-partied failed, and the other candidate got elected and reelected forever. So I've just got this basic mistrust of voting machines, but maybe I need to change. Thanks. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Price. So basically, up in the narrative part, you say you need $420,000, and then down here on the actual budget, you have $323,871. So you need an additional $420,000 to buy the equipment from the county, to buy the equipment you need to efficiently allow the basic democratic process of everybody to vote.
That's what I'm saying. I tried to separate our budget out so that you would look at the $333,000. That's what it costs to run the election commission for next year. The $420,000 would be the additional cost for the voting equipment for us to efficiently go forward moving for elections going forward.
So what you're asking for is $740,000?
Okay. No, I'm asking for $420,000 for voting equipment.
Right.
And that's it has to be in the small equipment line.
Correct.
But what I don't want to get lost is that we still need the operating funds to go forward with just
you had this past year, correct? Or
Well, in
we've added
2014,
to it because of the presidential election. There's always about, $300,000 more that we put back on non-presidential years.
Yes, that is correct.
So you're asking for that $300,000 to be brought back up like we always do for the presidential election. In addition to that, you need the $420,000 for voting machines.
That's correct.
Okay. Well, I move that we pass this. This is a basic need, and it's for every citizen in this county. We need to be very efficient. Everybody's vote needs to be counted, And it's a lot of money, but it's something that we have to do.
I have a motion and a second. I'm going to recognize some board members. J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Madam Judge. Since you're here, I'm going to ask you a couple questions about the vote center process. I voted early, and they had paper ballots in the clerk's office, and I was confused about that because I guess we printed them anyway.
We do. You know, we know that there's a certain percentage of the voting population that just does not want to deal with the touchscreen. The county clerk's office is set up to actually handle all of the precincts. So I feel that it's prudent on our part to provide paper ballots during early vote at the county clerk's office only because she has the mechanisms to keep them safe, to keep them in order, sorted. And so that nobody gets the wrong ballot. When we look at vote centers at the polling places, and if we're talking about a countywide election with 151 precincts, there's no way for us at the polling place to keep 151 ballots sorted and know out of that particular precinct how many would show up. So moving forward, our goal is to still keep paper ballots at the clerk's office only, have limited number of paper ballots at the polls on election day, but it would be strictly, for all practical purposes, touchscreen only at the polls.
Well, because, I think the more we emphasize electronic, the more people that are used to the old ways are going to raise questions about the integrity of the process. And so I told some people, I said, well, you can use paper if you vote early at the clerk's office. Yes. And they seemed somewhat assured that that option was available to them. But other questions I got a lot, and it may matter based on these two different printouts you're talking about. When people would say, oh, well, once I do the touch screen, it just goes into the never, internet, and where does it go, and how do you know what my vote is? And I remember the year y'all had to re-enter things, and so I knew there was some kind of record, and so I paid attention. I said, there's like a printout. I likened it to a court reporter's gibberish printout that comes out that he or she can read, the rest of us can't. And so I looked to see what was coming out of my touch screen this time, and I would tell people about that. And it still didn't assure them. I think they watched too much Scandal, where they had the reprogramming of the chips on the TV show, and they swung the presidential election based on one county in Ohio anyway. But I think there is distrust about the electronics, that there could be some kind of reprogramming in the system or a chip that's redone. And how does this new system address that? Because we're the ones that get the questions. What can we say to assure people there isn't a possibility of someone rigging your election or invalidating your vote somehow?
For one thing, nothing that we do in regards to programming is ever connected to the internet. So there's the touch screens, the computer that Lynn programs on, never connected to the touch screen or to the internet. So there's no way for an outside entity to actually hack the system.
Are they even internet capable? Can they connect
they
to
are,
Wi-Fi?
but
No.
we've got it turned off. Okay. It's not anything that you could do. So that part of it makes that part secure. The other part is, on the old system, if you ever had to do a hand recount, it would be on these rolls, and you would literally have to roll it out, count. With the new system, these new ballots on the central count machine that we would get can actually run through those machines. So in essence, they are still voting on a paper ballot because their votes will show up on this piece of paper just like it did on the screen, on the touch screen. And then if we had to, these could all run through the central count and be counted that way. So it's a little bit easier for if you actually had to do a recount or actually had to look and make sure that the system was working properly. The other thing we also do, and we'll do it for this election, is we do what's called logic and accuracy, where we do testing of the equipment to make sure that everything counts correctly. And
Okay.
that's done before every election and will be done even with this new voting equipment.
So when the voter votes on this new system, will they actually, because I could see it as it was printing in the little machine and going through, and I could see that what it checked. Will that?
They'll be able to see it on this too.
Okay.
But they won't walk out with this because that's their ballot.
Right.
It will stay in the machine and go into a compartment but it will count at the polling place. But the idea behind this also is if you had to do a recount, you could actually count these on the 650s, whereas this you would
manually
be there all
I remember
day.
that night.
Yeah.
I remember that night.
Going through those.
So let me ask you, with respect to the additional funds for the presidential year, I don't see that we have much of a choice but to fund that. But doesn't some money come back to
Yes.
the general fund?
Almost. One of the things that I just passed out, we should if you take out the 420 for the voting equipment, our budget that we're asking for without the 420,000 would be $657,000.
Okay.
But we would get back from the state of Arkansas, from the cities and everything else, almost $333,000, which actually puts our budget at about $323,000.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And the 42,853 would be my actual increase from 2014, if you count the reimbursements.
Would you say that's labor costs?
It is. The biggest majority of it is in personnel, just simply because we're looking at a presidential year. We're looking at if we get new voting equipment, it will be in the middle of the year. So we're required by law before the primary, which will be March 1st, to train every single poll worker that works. So they will go through that training sometime in January. We get new voting equipment, and we'll have to retrain our poll workers on the new voting equipment and new procedures. So I've added money in there for training. One of the nice things about the new voting equipment, every year before the major elections, we offer touchscreen training because the touchscreens that we have now are not easy to use, and there's a lot of steps sometimes that aren't exactly clear. And our poll workers, they work maybe 3 times a year, 4 times a year, every other year, and they want to be confident and comfortable on election day. So they come back for training every time we offer it, and we offer it before every big election because we want them to be confident on election day as well. We feel with the new voting equipment, it's simply plug it in, flip a switch, push a button, and then it turns on for you. We don't anticipate going forward that our poll workers are going to feel like they need to come in for the equipment training. They'll still need to come in for other training, but that equipment training we think will kind of go away for us.
Well, I think the way we're going is the right way. I think people really appreciated the vote centers on Election Day for the school board and the Fayetteville special election. So I definitely support that. And I'll say, too, that you all are serving all the county, the cities, the unincorporated parts, all of it. And so you are dealing with increased population. And I can't think of anything more important than election integrity. And the fact that these systems we're having are not going to be supported and are out of date, I think makes people distrust the system, really. And 2, having sat in this room on election night many nights waiting for the votes to be counted, sometimes until the wee hours of the morning, I don't know that people understand why the process takes so long anymore. I think, the internet has instant information, so why can't we have votes instantly? And so if technology is improving the speed of that process, that's what the world is expecting. And so I think that supporting this is really the right thing to do to give our citizens faith in the process and show the technological advances to the thing that matters the most, connecting the people to the elected officials through their vote. So thank you for coming and presenting tonight.
Next, I have Maxwell, Cochran, and Bowman.
Thank you, Judge. And I just want to say thanks to you for taking time this afternoon. You were very helpful in kind of sharing the context and kind of your vision and where you were going to do it and how those pieces worked. One question that came to mind is it sounds like the state, to the tune of about $1.5 million, is helping with these machines. What about the cities, the fire departments, the school boards, whoever else is using it? Do they participate in helping purchase the machines as well?
They won't help in participating in the purchase of the machines because the machines are county property. But they do, whenever we have an election, they pay for whatever part of their election. And I don't know if that's something we would, right now we've been able to keep election costs low for cities and fire departments. One thing in particular is because we do have an in-house programmer. Benton County, before they had an in-house programmer, spent $120,000 on programming alone. Lynn would love it if I paid her $120,000 a year. So we've been able to keep election costs low for the cities and even for the county as much as we can. I don't know if that's something we would want to look into, if we would charge a fee to try and recoup some costs. That's something to look at. It's not something we've done recently, and I don't know if we could do it, but.
Because it looks like at this point the county and the state pay for the machines, and then I'm assuming everybody pays kind of equally for the cost of each election. So that might be a way to recoup some of these funds where we share that cost. One other thing you mentioned today, I just want to make sure I understood this from earlier. So we currently have about 171 touchscreens, and you would like this proposal will take us to 324. But you also mentioned that if you needed to, you could phase in 27 machines additionally each year at the cost of $140,000. So I'd like to offer an amendment that we do a 3-year phase-in and allow this to go from 171 to about 198 this year, and then each additional year move that up, and that'll kind of help us cover those costs and not have to absorb all that in one year.
I do, if I may. And that would certainly be an option for the Quorum Court to take, and it certainly would, not be as big of a piece of the pie that the Election Commission is taking. We would not be able to move forward with vote centers with the smaller amount of equipment allocated to us. That 324 is what gets us going towards the vote centers. And 2016 will be the biggest election year that we've seen. And that would be the year we would want to have vote centers. So I just wanted to, to make that clear that anything less won't get us to that ultimate goal. I mean, we will get there eventually, but we wouldn't be able to do it for the presidential year.
With 200 of them, would you be able to do partial vote centers at all, or does that have to be all at once?
Okay, you can do vote centers a couple of ways. You could allocate certain polling places as vote centers, and every other polling place would be open. The problem with that is voter confusion. And if we were to say Central United Methodist, Rodeo, and such are vote centers, the voters don't necessarily always get that message. And we would end up with voters going to a polling place thinking it was a vote center, and it wasn't a vote center, and then they can't vote there and have to go to another polling place. We look at vote centers as it needs to be all the polling places. That's why it worked so well for the city of Fayetteville and for the school election, was because we didn't have to try and say out of the 17 polling places, 3 of them are vote centers, but the other ones you have to go to your, if you don't go to those 3, you have to go to your normal polling place. We have 56 polling places right there right now. To designate any 2 or the 3 of those as vote centers and say all the others are not would lead to a lot of confusion for our voters. And that's my fear on that. I really do feel like to do vote centers, it needs to be all or none.
And there's no way, if I do the math right, there's about 54 machines if we just did 27 additional tonight. That would leave you 54 short, so about 1 short at each polling station. That's enough to keep that from being total vote centers?
It's not just the vote centers. We also have to have the voting machines for early vote as well.
Sure.
So you have to figure in, right now we have about 43 machines that we use for early vote. So that does put us short, because even if we consolidated polling places, I don't lose registered voters. I've just moved them to another place. But yeah.
I'll second the motion. You want to? Okay. We have a motion and a second to only partially fund the voting machines. Oh, I'm sorry. So we have but now I've got several I've got to recognize first. J.P. Cochran.
Thank you, Judge. Real quick question, the expected life, since we got about 10 years out of our current equipment, is the expected life longer, shorter, about the same?
Of course, they're always going to tell you probably 10 years. However, this voting equipment, from what they've talked about, is actually capable of being upgraded. The voting equipment that we currently have, there's no upgrade to it. But this new voting equipment, they do estimate that we could upgrade it as we go forward, as technology advances.
As operating systems evolve? Okay.
Yes.
All right, that's all I have. Thank you,
J.P.
Judge.
Bowman.
Thank you, Judge. I guess two questions. First one, you mentioned that there's only plans to purchase one counting device. With the likelihood of a possible problem there, would you not need a second to do follow-up in case there was a problem?
We are looking to, for the counting device, we're looking to be mostly electronic election day. So when we're talking about counting paper ballots in the evening, it would be very few paper ballots. So we think that with the one counting machine, we would be able to do that. We count early and absentee, which would be eventually our biggest majority of paper ballots. Those are counted before the polls are closed. So if there were any problems with the voting equipment, we should be able to get it fixed beforehand.
The counting machine is only counting paper ballots?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I misunderstood.
Yeah, it has the capability to count these ballots, but primarily it would just be for early and absentee. But if you wanted to give me another $115,000 for a second one, I'll be happy to have that.
Good luck.
Thanks.
JP,
I guess the second question was, I know last year, didn't we allow 2 weeks of early voting at all these locations? I still don't understand why we need a full 2 weeks of early voting. I don't know how much it would reduce our cost to only have 1 week of early voting instead of 2. Can you tell me about that?
Sure. It would obviously reduce your cost by almost half, but voters are creatures of habit. And in order for us to get consistency with early voting, we need to stick with the 2 weeks that we've stuck with. Right now, Pulaski County has about 50% of their votes cast early, and it's in part because since 1997, they have stuck with the same early vote sites, the same hours, year after year after year, and a lot of their voters don't even know where their regular polling place is. They're so used to early voting. In order for us to maximize our early vote and relieve the polling places from voters at their polling place, we need to strive to get to that 50% of early vote. And in order to do that, we need to stick with the 2 weeks that we've consistently been having. One of the things with 88,000 voters possibly voting on Election Day, if we get, if we could get 50%, or I'm shooting for 45%, that alleviates a lot of the stress at our polls on Election Day. Some of our polling places have over 4,000 registered voters or 5,000 registered voters there. And if we get the biggest majority of them casting the ballots at that polling place on Election Day, that's something like 2,000 to 3,000 people at one location. And that's very hard to manage, and it makes the lines long for the voters. And so we're hoping to stick with the, with the 2 weeks for early vote for consistency's sake.
If we'll spread out the voters over a 2 or 3 week period, whatever it is now, should that not reduce the number of machines you need to get everybody through?
Well, right now, currently, on Election Day, we're about 60% paper ballots and about, or close to almost between 60 and 70% paper ballots on Election Day, and about 40%, 30 to 40% touchscreen on Election Day. In order to do vote centers and to go forward, we need to make it be all touchscreen on Election Day. So that's one of the reasons why right now we currently vote mostly paper Election Days, because we don't have enough machines.
So you don't really believe that we've got any flexibility here to change the situation up from what you're presenting to us?
I feel like for early vote, for consistency, and to achieve that ultimate goal of getting 50%, we need to stay with the 2 weeks. Right now, for early vote, for the general election. The county pays half of it because they pay for half of the election, but the cities pay for the other half. So the actual cost to the county is not, say I spend $35,000 for early vote or $40,000 for early vote, the actual cost to the county is only $20,000. The cities pick up the other $20,000.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Judge. Ms. Price, 2 questions. Did you receive any feedback from the Secretary of State, any correspondence to why they're not going to fund Washington County any more than what they have?
Just a response back that they would look into it, but nothing further. I think the RFP was released for they've chosen their vendor, which is ES&S, which is the current vendor that we're with right now. And part of that RFP that ES&S submitted to the Secretary of State's office, and that was accepted, included a spreadsheet of the amount of equipment that each county would be getting. And then that amount of equipment equaled into a dollar amount. And I feel like at this point, the Secretary of State's office is kind of stuck with that dollar amount and have not been willing to budge from that. But we have certainly asked, and we've certainly pressured and, reached out to everyone that we know to ask them to adjust the dollar amount, but we've not gotten response back.
Okay, so the state's just ignoring you at this point.
I wouldn't say ignoring me. I would just say
Well, they're fopping you off on the county.
Yeah.
Wanting
Basically.
us to pay for it once again.
Sebastian County is going through the same procedure. Sebastian County is one of the pilot programs, and they had to ask their Quorum Court for additional funding as well. I know that Benton County is in that same seat as well.
Okay, thank you. I have 2 comments. Early voting. I'm an early voter, and I spread the word. Have you voted? Have you voted? Have you voted? Have you voted? Go to the mall. Have you voted? Have you voted? Have you voted? Nobody responded. No, I didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't know. So I spread the word, early vote, early vote, early vote. Creatures of habit. We haven't had these new systems like you wanted, what are they called, the express vote areas. We haven't used those in county or state or presidential elections yet. You just used them that one time in Fayetteville?
We have not used them. The vote centers is the first time that we've... Yes, the vote centers for the Fayetteville election and for the school election.
Okay, so we don't have that we don't have that habit yet, do we?
No.
Okay, so that's good, because since we're creatures of habit, we don't know what we're missing. I support J.P. Maxwell's amendment to cutting this, because at this point, I don't really see us having to spend that amount of money right now. If we had it, I'd give it to you. But you need to work with us just as much as you're accepting it from the state that we don't have that to give you. We will down the road, but we need to break this stuff into 2-3 payments, to purchase so many. And then that way, then we can get it going. But until then, to support this full amount, I can't. And we don't have that habit yet, so they don't know what they're missing. I'm going to go banner signs, everything, early vote to help. And the people down on Turner Street do a fantastic job. Every year I go in there, they say, "Hi, Lisa, how are you doing?" They're great. I guess those were my 2 comments. Thank you, Madam Judge.
Thank you, Hardison.
I think Ms. Price knows better than anybody on this horseshoe what she needs to run an election. It's going to be a large election. We need to get everybody out to vote, and yes, we need to remind people to vote early. But to cut corners, when we cut corners on elections, we're cutting corners on democracy. Because if someone has to go stand in line and they have a babysitter or something, and it comes 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and they're still standing in line, they may have to just leave and not get to vote.
Early vote.
Well, they could early vote, but a lot of people will vote on Election Day because, unless we just cut out Election Day voting and go completely with early voting. But I think we're being very short-sighted to go along and cut these machines. That's my opinion. It may not be the opinion of the court, but that's it. Thank you.
Okay, I don't have anyone else to recognize.
Judge, may I
Yes,
engage
would you
Justice
Yes.
Maxwell? Justice Maxwell, I heard an about. Could I ask you to restate your motion, please?
Just a motion to amend the funding from $420 to $420,000 for small equipment to, this was Mrs. Price is the one who helped me with the numbers, but that would be $140,000.
Okay. And who was the second on that? And that's your understanding as well, Justice Madison? Thank you, Judge. That's all I had. So I just want the members to know what they're about.
Okay. Yes, Justice.
I wanted to be clear too for that small equipment line. It's just the 420 because I have other money in that small equipment line too. I know this is kind of because for the small equipment I still have $5,000 in there as well. So if you're in addition to the $420,000, so you're just talking about the $420,000 and not the $5,000 I have in the small equipment line.
Maybe it'd be clearer to just restate the amendment as reducing that amount by $280,000.
And if the second accepts that, that's fine.
Yes, that way it won't affect the small equipment line item 2002 above that of $5,000.
All right. So just to be clear, any of the Judge, I'd ask if any of the justices have questions about what they're voting on now, which is Justice Maxwell's amendment, and then they'll proceed to vote on the full request, the full capital and personnel request after that, whether the amendment passes or not.
Are we all okay?
I'd like to, you're talking about cutting the budget from 420 to, what is it?
That line would go from 420 to 140.
Okay.
And those are the numbers that you had just mentioned would be a nice piecemeal to be able to do this in incremental fashion.
Okay, thank you. Now, what will happen to the voting process with that kind of reduction in the funding?
So basically, we would still vote like we normally do. However, you would still be required on Election Day to go to your normal assigned polling place for the general and for the primary. But what it will do is, with the addition of more touch screens, it will lessen the amount of paper ballots that we'll use on Election Day, which means that we'll get out of here election night that much earlier because the voting process, the result part will go that much quicker.
Okay, thank you.
I wanted to briefly speak against the amendment because I think it's important to fund all of this at once. This is not something that's going to be an ongoing cost like personnel. This is a one-time expense. This is what really reserves are for, I think. This is why we save money, so that we can pay for big expenditures like this. And having them do it piecemeal over time where they're not able to implement the full advantages of the technology immediately, I think we're missing out. I don't know that that's a good way to do it. And I know that people are not used to the voting centers yet, but the reaction that I heard was so positive to them that pushing that off, I think, is really not a good thing. I think we need to go ahead and take advantage of this technology and roll it all at once. And I think that we would be better served by just going ahead and putting this money out there now, so that the Election Commission can do what they need to do with the full technology and the vote centers. Thank you, Madam Judge.
I guess just a couple of comments. You said that the governor's office was unwilling to discuss changing the formula. So they're already buying these machines, and so will that affect that in any way by us only buying part of them now?
No, it will not. They're still allocating a little less than $1.5 million to Washington County. But in order for us to move forward with vote centers, we need that additional equipment.
And I guess my second question is, whenever we begin to implement this, I would think that it would take not a lot longer to implement all of them. Instead, we're going to have to pay additional costs to do it 2 more times. Is that probably right? In other words, when we get the equipment, there's a certain amount of hooking up and going through and the process of just putting it into online, for lack of a better word. So that process would have to be done 3 times instead of once. Is that probably true?
I think yes, I think it will. I mean, we'll have to receive the equipment and then find space for it and readjust our warehouse and different things like that, and then decide where we're allocating that equipment to. Each election cycle, it would cause us to redo things, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Could I clarify one thing? It's not the governor, it's the Secretary of State that is handling all of it.
I want to point out one thing too. I'm sorry to butt in like this, but I wanted to respond to a question that J.P. Bowman had, whether doing this incrementally could cause any problems with the voting process, the election process. That kind of goes back to one point that J.P. Bowman had earlier regarding the one piece, the central counting equipment. So our plan is, as Jennifer's discussed, to go to vote centers. That's our goal, and in doing so, we're only budgeted, we only want to get one piece of central counting voting equipment. If we do this incrementally, we're still going to be maybe half paper. We're still going to have a whole lot of paper ballots, and we're only going to have one central counting piece of equipment to count those paper ballots, whereas now we have 3. So kind of responding to your point, we'll only have one big piece of equipment to count paper ballots on election night, and we're going to have a whole lot of paper ballots if we do it incrementally for the presidential election.
Thank you, Judge. Very quickly, you look at the $420,000, and that's over 10 years. That's $42,000 a year, just over $3,000 a month. You haven't come to us in 10 years for any money for equipment. I'll support the full $420,000. Thank you, Judge.
I think we're ready to vote the motion and then the amendment. So Carly, would you call the roll? Okay, Steve.
You're voting on Justice Maxwell's amendment to reduce the $420,000 requested capital allocation for new voting machines, new touch screens, express votes. Jennifer, you tell me what the right express votes to $140,000. That's the amendment before you, and then the entire request, as amended or not, will be up for your next vote.
All right.
Rick Cochran?
No.
Robert Dennis?
No.
Lisa Ecke?
Yes.
Ann Harbison?
No.
Sharon Lloyd?
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom?
Yes.
Eva Madison?
No.
Sue Madison?
Yes.
Joe Maxwell?
Yes.
Gary McHenry?
Yes.
Joe Patterson?
Yes.
Butch Pond?
No.
Bill Ussery?
No.
Daniel Balls?
No.
Harvey Bowman?
I don't know. No.
The amendment, no. Justice Bowman, did I hear you say no?
Yes, he said no.
Okay. The amendment failed.
So now we're ready to go back to the full budget that was presented to us. Carly?
Okay. Rick Cochran?
Yes.
Robert Dennis?
Yes.
Lisa Ecke?
Yes.
Ann Harbison?
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd?
Yes.
Tom Lundstrom?
No.
Eva Madison?
Yes.
Sue Madison?
Yes.
Joe Maxwell?
Yes.
Gary McHenry? Joe Patterson?
Yes.
Butch Pond?
Yes.
Bill Ussery?
Yes.
Daniel Balls?
Yes.
Harvey Bowman?
I don't know. Yes.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you, guys.
Is it my turn, isn't it? Isn't it my turn? Okay. Hello. I'm Sean Shrum with the Washington County Road Department, and I'll start out with our regular budget, the 200200, asking for $50,000 for county matching funds. This goes with our state aid money. We are required to do a 10% match on our state aid funds. That's what that's for. And then the personnel services, asking to change 2 HEO1 positions to HEO2 positions.
I want to ask you to explain one thing. Tell them what the matching fund does for us.
Washington County receives a certain amount of state aid funds a year. And that money, we can do certain things with it. Like we overlaid this year, we did a mile of County Road 11, around a mile of County Road 43, and approximately a mile of County Road 9. And we're, like I said, we're required to match those funds with 10%. So if the job is a $150,000 job, we'd match it with $15,000.
And if we don't have that money, what happens?
We can't use our state aid money. And we would lose it. You can bank it for so many years, but if you don't have it allocated or spend it, then you lose it. It goes back to the state fund.
Okay. Go ahead. Proceed.
Okay. And that was it. The other thing was the HEO1 position moving to HEO2. And I thought I'd do these first, or do you want me to move on to the half-cent budget?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. On the half-cent budget, I'm asking for some money for some equipment, asking for $110,000 for a new brush hog, and then $270,000 for 2 new dump trucks. I estimate those at $135,000 each. The brush hog is something that we use day in, day out, summertime, wintertime. Summertime, we're doing the paved roads. Wintertime, we do the dirt roads and cut back the brush and limbs. They just rack up a lot of hours, and we have tried to buy a new one yearly, but we haven't in a few years. Dump trucks, same thing. They go in, day out, always going. And we're getting some that are getting quite a few miles on them and costing us quite a bit in repairs.
And on the brush hogs, we have a lot of complaints. We've got so many of them broken down now, do we not?
That's right. I think we're down to one. I know one was in the shop today, broke down. So it's kind of constant.
J.P. Madison.
Mr. Shrum, I wanted to ask you about the HEO1 to HEO2 positions. I know that you use those positions for a variety of functions, so I was curious what you intend to use the HEO2 positions to be dedicated for.
Well, what it was discussed earlier this year was trying to give some more opportunity to HEO1s. We have, the majority are HEO1s. A lot of the people there could move up, but the position is not there. We only have a limited number of HEO2s. So we had 2 HEO1 positions open, and so we wanted to make those HEO2s, and then we're going to open it up, and depending on how the process goes, like we do, just to give opportunity to some HEO1s to move up to HEO2s.
I guess I'm not following you. What's the opportunity then, other than just being a 2 instead of a 1?
The pay is different.
Is it an increase in responsibility in any respect?
Well, it kind of depends. It's based off of experience. So if I hire in as an HEO1 and, maybe I'm there for 10 years, we have some HEO1s that have been there for 20 years. It gives them more money based on their experience.
But with no increase in responsibility?
Well, I think that kind of depends. If you're an HEO2, you should be able to operate more equipment, a wider variety of equipment that you've learned over the years. And I think you're rewarding these people for having more experience.
what then is the difference in the job description between an HEO1 and an HEO2 other than the compensation?
It's the experience.
And that shouldn't, I mean, I would think that our pay bands account for experience. Seems to me like we're just giving somebody a pay increase, and we have to call it something different because of the band issues. And to me, it seems like a promotion. If you move from an HEO1 to HEO2, you ought to have some increase in responsibility commensurate with the pay increase.
One of the reasons they did this back before I was employed here was people were maxing out at, say, an HEO1, and they weren't able to get a raise. So they added this HEO2 position to allow them to move on up and based on their experience. I guess I'm a little confused. When we were here earlier this year, I was told that we didn't offer enough of them. And now we're trying to offer more, and so I guess I'm confused. I guess I was just trying to do what I was asked of earlier this year.
Well, I think the concern that came out in the course of the bridge investigation was that these positions are in existence right now, and they're coveted positions, and people who wanted them didn't have the means to apply for them. And so that was the issue, was that it was a mystery as to how you got to be an HEO2. People who'd been, like you said, HEO1s for years were not given the opportunity, where some people were hired outside of the county directly into those HEO2 positions. And so it was a concern about the access to the advancement. But I guess I had it in my mind that there was a distinction between the positions other than purely compensation. I don't think we ought to be creating positions to just give people more money. That needs to be addressed through the JSAP committee and with Ms. Huffaker about whether the positions are properly banded or whether there needs to be a compensation change in the band. But I don't think I can support creating positions that don't change job duties and don't increase responsibility just so that somebody can have more money. I misunderstood that, and I'm sorry that you think I have somehow sent you down this path, but this was something I did not understand. I just assumed there was a functional difference between the positions.
Well, I think some of what was said about how people got the jobs was not correct from what you were told also. I don't think that investigation was thorough, and I don't think it was correct in a lot of ways. But, this is what I was told, and I feel like it's important to make these opportunities available, because I was told, well, there's no room for advancement. I think you heard that from some people.
I did, and with all due respect, having spent 2 weeks of my life working on that investigation, I think it was very thorough, and I think we had people who are very candid with us about concerns they haven't been free.
I don't think we need to go here.
No,
I think we need to get on with the budget.
With all due respect, Mr. Shrum brought it up.
Okay, we're going to end it right now. That's all.
I think the issue is that there needs to be an opportunity for advancement, but it needs to actually be advancement, and I don't think this is.
Okay.
So I don't know. I think perhaps this is a personnel issue, that if we're calling something an advanced position that in fact is nothing more than just a pay increase, that's a compensation issue that needs to be addressed a different way. I would expect that these people are promoted with additional responsibilities and some type of supervisory responsibility. Let me ask you, with respect to the half-cent sales tax budget for the equipment, you're requesting brush hogs and dump trucks, is that correct?
1 brush hog and 2 dump trucks, yes.
Okay. How many brush hogs does the county currently have?
We currently have 6. Okay. 2 that go, we have operators for, 2
East and west,
for
yeah.
each side, yeah,
Okay.
and then 2 spares. And the spares they're constantly being used.
Okay. And which one are you proposing replacing, a spare or?
Yes, one of the spares. And we would probably trade that one in because, we would get rid of it. It would be as part of the bid. It would be a trade-in.
Do you know what the trade-in value is?
I do not. Not much with that many hours.
Okay. And then with respect to the dump trucks, you're asking for 2 new. Would these be 2 additional or 2 replacement?
We're at the point where I feel like we would probably trade in 2 of the oldest ones also.
Okay. So there would be replacements. How many dump trucks do we currently have in the county?
Currently, as far as ones that go that are hauling gravel all the time that we have specified drivers for, we have 8, and then we usually there's an additional 4 that are filled up every day or most of the time when we have the drivers or when they're not broke down, and then we have some that may pull backhoes, other trailers, just other equipment.
So what's the total number of dump trucks you have then?
I don't have total number. I'd say there's probably, less than 20. Like I said, some of them may be out at the crusher being used. It really depends.
It's a little hard for me to approve additional items when we don't have any idea how many we have. You really don't know. Does Mr. Coleman know how many dump trucks?
Well, I guess are you wanting to know the ones that are hauling gravel, or include the ones that hook up a trailer, haul a backhoe out?
I want to know how many dump trucks the county owns.
Approximately 20. But no, off the top of my head, no, I don't.
And the 2 that you're proposing replacing, do you know what they're currently being used for?
Well, I'm not sure. I haven't, as far as knowing which 2 would be replaced, I don't know. That's something that I would look into if the money is made available.
So how did you come to the conclusion that you needed to ask us for 2 if we don't know which ones we're talking about?
Well, I don't see where that's relevant. We have the dump trucks and their high miles. I would probably pick the 2 highest miles of the 04s, the 2004 models. Is probably what I'd end up doing.
So did you go through some logic to decide? You went through some logic to come to us and decide to ask for 2. So I'm curious how you decided 2 if you don't know which 2.
I don't guess I understand. To me, I will go back and look and probably see kind of what maintenance we've done. If it's, if we've just put a new motor in one of the older ones, well, to me, that's maintenance that we've done. We need to get our money back on that, and plus we put a lot of money into it, so we'd keep it. If we have another one that's given us a lot of trouble, that's one I would look at as possibly trading off.
Well, right here on this deal is showing the ones that have over 400,000 miles is the ones that we'll have to trade.
Well, where did that information come from? If it didn't come from you, I'm
curious.
What
do you mean? What information?
Apparently, the judge has pointed out that on the back page it says the money being requested would be used to purchase 2 dump trucks at an estimated cost of $135,000 each. We purchased two dump trucks at the end of 2014. Prior to that, we have not purchased dump trucks since 2010. The county's dump trucks are used each day. The repair costs continue to rise as the miles on our dump trucks increase. Some of our dump trucks are approaching 400,000 miles.
That came from me. It was in your packet. And that's what I'm saying. The ones with the higher miles are the ones that I would look into replacing. I don't guess I understand your question.
Well, if I were coming to the Quorum Court with a budget request, I'd go out and say, this dump truck is really old and it's about to fall apart, and that's the one we need to replace, and its replacement costs $60,000.
Then I need to ask for more dump trucks, because we have several like that. I'm just trying to do what I was asked by the court and save money, reduce our budget. I'd love to ask for 6 dump trucks, because we could use them.
I'm not sure you know which 6 need replacing, though, so thank you very much, Judge.
Are you finished?
Yes.
J.P. Cochran.
Thank you, Judge. Sean, back to the employees moving up a grade.
I can't hear you, Rick.
Sorry.
That's
back
okay.
to the employees moving up a grade. What's would be the expected hourly increase for a person going from an operator to an operator 2?
I think it's 2 grades, and it's around 15 something is what it would be, and it depends on the person, because it would depend on if that person had been there a while, and they may already be making what the minimum of HEO 2 is, okay. And would have to be adjusted up.
Okay. The question in my mind is, of all your heavy equipment operators, the JSAP requirements of the job, say you have to be able to do these things. Do you have a lot of people in that category that also do the job requirements of the 2?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, you're getting these employees at a lower pay scale. They're doing the next step pay scale.
Right.
Okay. How many fall into that category?
Oh, off the top of my head,
More
I mean,
than
there's
two?
several. Oh, yes.
More than two?
Definitely.
Okay. Well, you've only asked for two, so I'll go with two. But later next year, maybe you ought to be considering bringing them on up, because if we've only got, what, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 of the twos and innumerable ones, and you have a lot of people with a lot of experience, we're underpaying these people, and that really isn't right, in my mind. You have the scale, and if they cap out, that's not good for them. And eventually, I know what happens. They go. Okay. Thank you, Judge.
Approximately, you may know off the top of your head, how many of these HEO ones do you have?
How many?
About.
We have the majority's HEO ones.
It's in our packet, isn't it? Okay.
Yeah, I'd have to count them. Probably, I'm going to say around 65, 70 are HEO ones.
And about how many HEO2s? It doesn't have to be the exact number.
I think there's 7. I believe there's 7 HEO2s
There's 7
currently.
HEO2s and 70 HEO1s?
Approximately.
And just to kind of, I may ask you something that Steve may not want me to ask. If you can't answer this or shouldn't, let me know. But the fellow that retired, that was head of the bridge department, was he an HEO1
He's supervisor.
supervisor?
Yes.
So he would be above HEO1.
Yes.
Then you had another guy that kind of stood in for him after he retired. Was
He
he?
was a lead man position.
And a lead is above HEO2 also?
Yes.
So, okay. I'm just trying to get some kind of idea. And about those dump trucks, do you know about how many, dump trucks? I was trying to get a picture. There are triaxles and tandems and single axles and stuff. These two you're asking for, would they be tandem axle trucks?
Triaxle.
Or triaxles?
That's what yes. That's what I figured in as the cost.
What do you usually, what size truck do you usually use if you're going to pull a backhoe?
Well, we have the tandem axles that do that usually. We have like some old Ford dump trucks, and then we have a couple of Mack trucks that pull backhoes that are tandem axle.
And we didn't let you replace any equipment last year.
That's right.
And I get some input from some people and things, and I'll tell you what, some of the discussion on this court, we're talking about taking more money away from the road department. And what is Washington County? And when somebody says Washington County, what kind of picture comes into mind? It's not just some kind of legal line drawn on a map. That is Washington County on the map. But, and I'm getting someplace with this. Washington County is the people that live in the county, they work in the county. Some of them retire there. They die there. They pay their taxes. Now, if you wanted to look at it more of in an economical way, they're not just those people, are not just the heart of Washington County. They live there, they work there, they're the engine that drives the county. And I want y'all to, be as efficient as you can with your money maintaining the roads and equipment and stuff like that. The roads and the bridges, they're the arteries and the veins that heart uses. They're what that has to be there for the engine to drive or the heart to pump. If we start letting that stuff fall apart, which I know you've had to. You've had a lot of things come up against you. We start letting that fall apart, and our economy falls apart. It picked on you about bridges. We've had people on here come on here sitting at this horseshoe say, well, we might need to look at all the bridges that were built the last 20 or 25 years. My goodness. These bridges have been inspected and passed by the state. You start putting some 3-ton weight limits on some of those other bridges. I mean, that's been suggested, like we did the Harvey Dow Bridge. You get a place where feed trucks can't get across them, live poultry haulers can't get across those bridges.
Jake Pond, we need to stay on the topic.
Well, that's part of. I don't want to see any more of this stuff of cutting road budgets. Is that going to be good for Springdale or any of these other places? Maybe these people don't live out in the country, but Springdale's economy is dependent on a lot on what goes out there. And I appreciate what y'all do. You don't see me coming out there picking on the stuff you do. We have got to quit going backwards as far as road maintenance. I'm sorry. I apologize, ma'am, but I've just about seen enough of this, whatever you want to call it. Thank you. Thank you for letting me blow off a little steam.
Judge Ecke, I'm good to you.
I like Judge Ecke. I don't think so. Not at this time. Thank you. I think two things, maybe three. Number one, the road trip that we went on was a very good road trip. And while we were on that road trip, I asked you, what kind of capital are you looking at as far as equipment when we were out at the gravel pit? I believe that's where we were out at Prairie Grove. And you brought up, we need replacements on these dump trucks, and you showed us what was there, what needed to be replaced. And we all looked at it. We went out to the sheds and we said, yep, it needs to get replaced. They were looking very old. And I support you on that, because we can't just drive a good meal to the ground until it's dead. And after seeing it and you showing it to us and being candid about exactly what you need, more so than this is what I want, you're showing us this is what we need. That's point one. Point two, on the HEO 2, is there a certain skill set requirements that goes with the seniority of an experience that it's required to move up? I mean, is there a specified skill sets?
I don't remember exactly what the job description, what the difference in the job description is, but there is some time and experience that
Seniority?
I don't think seniority is in there.
No, okay.
But the way we do the changes or the job positions now, through that process, seniority is included in that.
Okay. If there was a little bit, if it was further defined what the skill set is of a HEO 1 and to an HEO 2, and therefore you've earned this increase in salary or your hourly wage, I think, number one, I'd feel better about it. And I'll have something that I can set a goal to, like I want to do that, so I'm going to learn how to do that.
Right.
But
sorry.
Is there something already that you have? Or?
I mean, I feel like there is, because at the road department, we may hire and have hired guys right out of high school. So they don't have experience. Then we've hired individuals that have 30 years experience, and we don't have HEO2 position available, so they hire in as an HEO1. I think it really depends on the person, but yes, I feel like there is that goal or something to shoot for. But that's the problem is we don't have but only 7 positions right now in their field. And, the guys, I feel like of the ones maybe retire, but there's not that opportunity to move up. And that's what, maybe I took it wrong, but I felt like that's what I was being told, that, we need that opportunity to move up, and advance.
Do you see that from the men that are out there, though, that work for the roads department, that they are hungry for advancement?
Yes.
Do you see that need?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I mean, not every single one of them, but several of them have came and asked. I think it's the same thing with our mechanics. We have one master mechanic, and then the rest are senior mechanics. We have mechanics there that really should move up to master mechanic, but we don't have the positions. The reason 2 is what I presented is because we had 2 available or open positions that were not filled as HEO1s. And so I took those 2 positions, and that's what I'm asking for, is to change them to HEO2s. I guess I could have easily said, all right, I'm picking out these guys, they have this, and come to y'all and ask, can I change these to HEO2 positions from HEO1? But I think through the process that we've come up with, I don't know who's going to even apply. It's for these HEO2 positions, we're going to have anybody that wants them apply, and then there's a process that we're going to go through based on past evaluations, their skill set, experience, and decide who would get them.
Mm-hmm. I do kind of agree with Justice Eva Madison in that if this does need to go through personnel, through Lindsay Huffaker's department first to define this, do you think? I mean,
well,
it's already done?
It's already done because the HEO2s, there's already the job description. There's already the job description for HEO1s.
Okay.
Not to say that, maybe we go back and look at it and more define the experience, but, I mean, that's what has been approved through JSAP before.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. To me, the 50,000 county matching is a no-brainer. We need to do that. The HE1 heavy equipment operator 2, 1 and 2. The longer you run heavy equipment, the more efficient you become at running the equipment, the better job you do. Some of these guys, there hasn't been any way to move up, and they, they're kind of stuck. And I can understand why they would say, if I can't, move up to a better position, maybe I need to look and go somewhere else and, find another job. Now, we've been very lucky because we've been in a recession for the past 3.5 years. And everybody, jobs, everybody, we had some of the highest employment in the county during these years because these were steady jobs. They were not like construction. Construction jobs are coming back. That means that these people that are very well trained can walk out of the county and get 2x, 3x the amount of money. However, I do know some that, I said, are you going to leave the county? Because I know that they are very good heavy equipment operators. And they said, no, they're getting a little older. They like the steady income instead of the famine and feast situations that occur in construction. But, I'm going to support moving. you really haven't asked for 2 new positions. What you've done is you've taken where you have vacancies in HEO 1s and made those HEO 2s. So you're really not asking for new people. You're just asking for a change to reward some of these people that have been there. And also, I know Lindsay has really worked hard on developing policies for people to bid on these jobs. And it's just not, they have to go through a process. They have to apply for these jobs. And that's good. So I'll be supporting that. And also I'm going to support the dump trucks. We need the dump trucks. And we need the brush hog. Brush hogs only last so long.
Is that a motion?
Yes, I'm going to make a motion that we approve his capital outlay of the road construction, personal service, HEO 1s, 2 of those to HEO 2 position, and the 2 dump trucks and brush hog.
Second.
Judge, may I?
Yes.
Or is it 4 dump trucks?
No, it's
2.
We'll
take 4.
Just a minute, I'm going to recognize Attorney Zaga.
Justice Harbison, I think you actually legally need to break these at least into 2 requests because they come out of 2 different funds. And I'm hearing so I would suggest to you, at least, that your motion needs to at least be in the $50,000 and the 2 HEO2 positions. And obviously, the pleasure of the court could break that down even further, but at least split it between the personnel and the state match and then the capital improvements.
Okay. Well, I will move that we approve the $50,000 matching fund for state projects. That's my first motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on that motion? Carla, would you call the roll, please?
Patterson doesn't know yet. Let him know what's going on, Judge.
We're going to break these motions down, J.P. Patterson, and this time we're only voting on the $50,000 for this state aid construction. No, just the one.
Just the one.
So we're only voting on the matching fund, and that's
For
all for
state
this
aid.
time, $50,000. So. That's all right, we don't mind. Okay, Carly, call the roll, please.
Rick Cochran?
Yes.
Robert Dennis?
Yes.
Lisa Ecke?
Yes.
Ann Harbison?
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd?
Yes.
Tom Lindstrom?
Yes.
Eva Madison?
Yes.
Sue Madison? Joe Maxwell?
Yes.
Gary McHenry?
Yes.
Joe Patterson?
Yes.
Butch Pond?
Yes.
Bill Ussery?
Yes.
Daniel Balls?
Yes.
Harvey Bowman?
Yes.
Okay, so now we will move on to the personnel services. That's requesting a change from HEO 1 to HEO 2. Yes, go ahead.
I have a question.
J.P. Lloyd.
First of all, I wanted to thank you for the road trip. I thought that was very enjoyable, and I just learned a lot that day. So thank you
for going.
But can I get a dollar amount for the personnel services? I mean, something, a range that you're thinking that it's going to cost?
It'll kind of depend on who it is.
And I understand that, but could you still give me, something close that I can?
I think.
I mean, from
Steve, you may
this
have
to this
help
or
out,
something?
Because if that person has been there and they're already making what is it, Steve, the 92% from midpoint, is that right?
It's
they
close.
would be eligible for 5%. I always call Lindsay with these questions, so I'm trying to. But is that right, Steve? Does that sound?
Judge, may I engage
Yes,
Mr.
please.
Truman colloquy? I don't know that 92% is right, but that's near right. I don't know the 2 position difference between, and that's what it is. I don't know that jump to be able to intelligently answer your question, John.
And I don't either because I don't know who may get the positions. Does that make sense?
Well, it does, but, I mean, I'm going to consider voting yes or no according to if it's 10,000 or if it's 50,000. I mean, a range would be helpful.
And like I said, without knowing who it is. And the reason I say that is
There's
because
Cheryl. You've got aid coming.
it really depends on who it is. We have one individual that may put in for it. This guy has been here for over 20 years.
Cheryl can help us.
And so his raise would be different than somebody that's been here for 5 years.
But
So
we have a minimum and a max.
We
that
do,
falls
and
in
there is a
there.
range.
Okay.
But as far as be $10,000, I can't see that. I can't see it would be
You can't see
that
it
kind
being
of
as
money.
high as 10,000?
Oh, no, not
That
for
would be
just two
that-
positions.
Probably the top,
Oh, I think
I
think less than that. I mean,
and that would be 10,000 a position?
no, I'm saying total for both.
Total,
I don't
10,000
see it
total.
costing the
Okay,
county. I would
that does help.
probably say not over 5, wouldn't you, Cheryl? I mean, based on,
Actually, the positions that we looked at him doing that with, it was people that had been here making more. So if you take the top of the first quartile in that 14 grade, you're actually, the reduction would be $198 less than what the people were already making in those positions.
Why would they be making less? That doesn't.
Because they haven't been here as long. They haven't been here for 40 years and had raises and stuff. So they have to start down at the first quartile.
First of the HEO2.
Yes.
yes, yes.
All right, thank you.
Madam Judge, I'm going to make a motion that we move.
Hang on. What's going on? Steve?
No, we didn't. We didn't have a motion.
Sharon, were you?
I was finished.
Oh, okay. Okay, but I've got a couple of other that I want to, J.P. Patterson, you were recognized. You had something to say a while ago. Okay, okay. And Sharon, did you have your?
I'm good.
Okay. Now, we got all of our people recognized, so now we're ready for the next motion. Ann?
All right.
Yes.
I make a motion that we change 2 HEO1 positions to HEO2 positions.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Carly, oh, I'm sorry, J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Madam Judge. I just want to let everybody know that I'm going to vote against this motion because this doesn't seem to have involved any clear, logical thinking to come up with this. We don't know how much money it's going to cost because it might depend on who applies, and we didn't go through proper channels to deal with it. It's just too vague, indicating to me that it hasn't been carefully thought through. Thank you.
Carly?
Rick Cochran.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd.
No.
Tom Lundstrom.
No.
Eva Madison.
No.
Sue Madison.
No.
Joe Maxwell.
No.
Gary McHenry.
Yes.
Joe Patterson.
No.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Bill Ussery.
Yes.
Danny Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
No. 8-7 passed.
Okay, it passed, okay. Now we're ready to move on to the machinery and equipment. Sean?
Okay, does anybody have any further questions on that?
I have a motion. Do I have any discussion?
We're all popped out.
Carly?
Rick Cochran.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd.
No.
Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
No.
Sue Madison.
No.
Joe Maxwell.
Yes.
Gary McHenry. Joe Patterson. Butch Pond.
Yes.
Bill Ussery.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman.
Yes.
Now that one passed, and now so now this vehicles has all been taken care of and the other stuff. Is this correct? That's the trucks and so on and so forth.
Yes. I think it
Does
was
that
together.
include your budget?
Yes.
Okay, for this
Yes.
part?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, do we have any citizens' comments? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion we adjourn.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.
Yeah.